The story begins with a lady known as the Stalker, whose obsession reached such heights that she joined the Crown Prince's army just to follow and pursue him daily. Her actions did not stop there. She went as far as sneaking into his bedroom at night, leading to her repeated arrest, and thus her behavior grew more extreme over time. Ultimately, the Crown Prince's patience with her constant pursuit ran out, and her end came at his hands as he took it upon himself to kill her. A girl in the modern era was following the events of this story and commented that such an end was the natural and logical consequence of that lady's actions. While she was deep in her thoughts, the unexpected happened. A sudden explosion erupted around her. She then woke up to the voice of a maid trying to rouse her, while her vision was blurred, and she could only distinguish the maid's figure and her strange clothes, making her wonder in confusion about what she was seeing. The maid was supporting her with great concern, asking if she was all right, as the girl looked in a difficult and painful state while clutching her head. The maid tried to remind her of what happened, explaining that the oven had exploded, while the girl checked her face, which showed some minor scratches and wounds from the accident. She looked around at the luxurious and unfamiliar place and wondered in her mind where she was, in a state of total loss. Then she realized the shocking truth. She had managed to enter the world of the novel she was reading and was reincarnated as the Villainess, Miss Seraphie de Brignas. While the maids were bathing her, she felt despair overwhelm her as she thought about her new fate. For she knew that this character whose body she now inhabited was destined to die in the prime of her youth. One of the maids noticed her lack of clothing and wondered what could be done about it, while Seraphie sat on her bed wearing a simple nightgown. The maid told her that the reason for this was her constant preoccupation with stalking the Crown Prince to the point that she didn't even have time to change her clothes, which amazed the new Seraphie. For this reason, the maid enthusiastically announced that she had carefully selected a group of new dresses for her, but Seraphie expressed her annoyance and tried to stop her. The maid proudly displayed dresses of a provocative nature, asserting that this was the style her mistress usually preferred. She then asked her to choose the most beautiful among them, but Seraphie turned her face away in clear dissatisfaction with those options. The maid was surprised by her reaction and reminded her that she had previously refused to wear anything else, and that her current clothes were unfit to wear. Seraphie decided to get rid of that character's past, so she told the maid from behind a curtain to throw all those dresses away, announcing that she would change her clothes. The maid stood bewildered, looking at the dresses in astonishment, unable to grasp this sudden shift in her mistress's taste and her strange command. Soon her confusion vanished to be replaced by a broad smile full of joy and relief as she realized that her young mistress had finally regained her senses. While she was immersed in her happiness, Seraphie poked her head from behind the curtain again to tell her that there was something else she wanted her to prepare, which piqued the maid's curiosity once more. Meanwhile, the soldiers in the hall were circulating news of the accident, as it seemed that Miss Seraphie was the one who caused the oven explosion, leading to the destruction of all the meals that had been prepared. They wondered among themselves with concern if they would be deprived of their meals today, expecting this incident to be just a new episode in the series of her reckless actions related to stalking. Their conversation was interrupted by Seraphie's sudden appearance, as she walked past them with confident strides wearing an elegant military uniform, which caused them such shock and extreme astonishment that one of them wondered in daze at what he was seeing. She did not care about their stunned looks and went on her way, leaving them in their confusion, for her destination was a large building that appeared to be of an official nature. She stood before the office of the Crown Prince, and here she recalled the details of the original story, how Seraphie pursued Crown Prince Raven persistently, and how her inevitable fate was to be killed by his hand at the age of 18. This dark fate prompted her to ask her maid, Emily, about her current age, which surprised the maid, who thought her mistress might have lost her memory from extreme happiness or due to the shock of the accident. Emily reminded her of her overwhelming happiness when she reached the age of 15, assuring her that this was her actual age now. Seraphie realized that the remaining time before she faced her fate was only 3 years, and with eyes full of determination, she resolved that she must change her destiny before it was too late. In the Crown Prince's office, a soldier was presenting a report regarding Miss Seraphie, explaining that she had collapsed after the oven exploded while she was trying to cook. The Crown Prince expressed his surprise at the news of the oven explosion and asked about the safety of others, to which the soldier replied that the young lady was the only one injured. The Crown Prince felt relieved that there were no other injuries and returned to his papers coldly, unconcerned about Seraphie's condition. Confusion was evident on his deputy, who did not comprehend the Crown Prince's calm reaction. The Crown Prince noticed his deputy's bewilderment and alerted him to the necessity of getting used to such matters, in reference to the Destian army. Then the Crown Prince asked his deputy if he had met Miss Seraphie before, and he replied in the negative. At that point, the Crown Prince advised him that it was better for him never to meet her, strictly warned him against getting involved with her, and ordered him to avoid her if he saw her. The deputy showed his understanding, remaining silent and obedient. The Crown Prince continued his warning, explaining to him that he would inevitably recognize her even from a distance, because of the strange and annoying aura that emanates from her entire being. He recalled with disgust and chills her previous situations when she used to force him to eat a cinnamon cake she prepared for him without cinnamon. The Crown Prince expressed his extreme annoyance, asserting that the mere presence of that woman in his field of vision was exhausting, and redirected his deputy to avoid her as much as possible. Ironically, as soon as he finished speaking, Seraphi's voice rang out from behind the door, asking for permission to enter, making the Crown Prince feel his deputy's bad luck. Despite his resentment, the Crown Prince permitted her to enter, so Seraphi opened the door and stepped into the office with calm steps. The Crown Prince looked at his deputy with a sarcastic gaze and asked him if he was ready to face the monster. And the deputy replied with determination that as a vice commander, he would overcome any ordeal. The Crown Prince smiled with satisfaction at his deputy's steadfastness, then offered to introduce him to her. While the deputy was preparing himself, the Crown Prince continued his sarcastic introduction, describing Seraphi as the most terrifying monster in this world. Seraphi stood before them in full elegance in her military uniform and gave the salute to the Crown Prince with all calmness and respect. The features of both the Crown Prince and his deputy froze in total shock, for her appearance and polite behavior were the complete opposite of the image the Crown Prince had painted in his mind moments ago. Seraphi continued her speech with a gentle smile, explaining that she had come to escort him to the dining hall. The Crown Prince wondered in total daze what was happening, so she simply told him that dinner was ready. The Crown Prince's army, Destian, suffered from a fundamental problem: its lack of skilled chefs. For all its soldiers specialized only in combat, and every time they tried to prepare meals, the result was catastrophic. The cooking chaos was immense. One of them would cut the cutting board itself instead of the vegetables, and another would break eggs on his comrade's head. It even reached the point where one of them used a flamethrower instead of a gas stove to light the fire. The inevitable result of these attempts was a plate of distorted and burnt food that no living being could eat. Going back in time a little to the kitchen, the maid Emily was watching her mistress Seraphi as she skillfully cut carrots, expressing her surprise at her cooking prowess. Seraphi thought to herself that since the soldiers were selective about their food, blowing up the kitchen and fleeing would have landed her in big trouble. Fortunately for her, her hobby and special skill was cooking. And after tasting what she had prepared, a smile of satisfaction appeared on her face, for the food was delicious. She hoped that through this food, she could improve their bad impression of her and perhaps gain some of the Crown Prince's approval. But in the dining hall, while Seraphi was presenting him with a bowl of delicious soup, the Crown Prince looked at the food with a suspicious eye, believing that her devious methods had evolved again and that this was just a new trap from her. The Crown Prince flew into a rage, looking at her with disdain, believing that she was still at her previous foolishness and that she was trying to force him to eat her vulgar food again. His word again confused Seraphi, who did not understand his meaning. While he sat before the wasted food, he asked her in a threatening tone what she was planning this time, accusing her of plotting a new scheme. In a sudden act, Seraphi picked up a piece of the food that had fallen on the table and ate it herself, which completely stunned the Crown Prince and his deputy. She told him calmly that she did not know of any misunderstanding he was talking about, asserting that this was just ordinary food prepared with fresh ingredients. She then added that it was fine if he refused to eat it, but she begged him not to throw it away, which seemed to confuse the Crown Prince slightly. The Crown Prince rose from his seat, suspicion still filling his eyes, stating that he saw she was plotting something once again. Then he turned to leave, challenging her to try and deceive him if she could, but he asserted that he would not fall into her trap. Seraphi remained standing in her place, while the vice commander watched the situation in silence. Driven by curiosity, or perhaps by duty, the vice commander took a piece of the food to taste it for himself. Later, while returning in the carriage, her maid Emily told her they had arrived at the palace. As soon as Seraphi stepped out of the carriage, she was dazzled by the magnificence and grandness of the palace she stood before. She climbed the stairs while contemplating the greatness of the building, which was worthy of the status of the most powerful family in the empire. When she entered her room, she found it excessively luxurious and flashy, making her wonder if this was truly her room. While her maid went to prepare the bath, she sat on the edge of the bed feeling some annoyance and discomfort in this lavish place. Her feet hit something under the bed, so she leaned down to discover what it was. She guessed it might be a jewelry box. She pulled out the wooden box and opened it, but expressions of confusion were drawn on her face as soon as she saw its strange contents. Emily returned to tell her that her bath was ready, finding her mistress sitting on the floor next to the open box. The maid asked her with concern what had happened. Seraphi looked at the contents of the box, which were a lock of pink hair, and asked Emily if she knew what this was, using the excuse that her memory was still blurred. Emily answered hesitantly that this hair belonged to a noble lady whom Seraphi hated intensely. Seraphi tried to recall the details of the novel but did not remember this part, so she guessed it might be a side event that wasn't mentioned, and wondered about the reason for the original character's hatred of that lady. Emily confirmed her suspicions, explaining that the reason was that the lady tried to seduce the Crown Prince, which gave Seraphi a headache as she thought about how ridiculous the situation was. Then Seraphi realized the reason for Raven's extreme shock at her polite behavior. No wonder he was expecting the worst from her. Seraphi decided that she needed to apologize to that lady one day, a decision that deeply surprised Emily. Emily surprised her with shocking news. That lady had already passed away, which made Seraphi freeze in her place and ask her to repeat what she said. She wondered in horror what happened to her, a terrifying possibility crossing her mind, that the original Seraphi was the one who killed her. Emily reassured her that it wasn't about who did it or what happened. That lady's bad reputation filled the entire kingdom, making Seraphi wonder about the existence of another character with such a terrible reputation other than herself. Emily explained that the lady was famous for her heinous deed, as she planted a stimulant in the crown prince's food and snuck into his bedroom that night, but she was caught and driven out in disgrace. The maid told her mistress that she was very angry when that incident occurred and insisted that the lady's deed was a crime, even exerting great effort to prevent Seraphi from going to kill her, while Seraphi wondered in confusion if she was the one who snuck into the bedroom and not that lady. The maid continued her speech explaining that the lady, out of malice for being rejected, committed suicide by swallowing poison directly in front of the crown prince, asserting that her level of actions was on a completely different degree of madness. Seraphi realized that there was a fundamental difference in events. The Seraphi character in the novel had stalking tendencies, but she wouldn't commit heinous acts like drugging food or committing suicide in front of the crown prince. Confusion took hold of her as she wondered what was going on and how the content of the story she knew had changed. In the crown prince's office, his deputy was telling him that Seraphi's meal that she presented yesterday had won everyone's approval, and therefore she would be preparing the meals from now on. The crown prince looked at his papers with indifference and ordered his deputy to tell her to do as she pleased. But he corrected himself, adding a condition in exchange for his approval. In the kitchen, Seraphi was feeling optimistic, believing that the story's content might change now, and that she might even be able to avoid her inevitable fate, so she resolved to do her best. She offered her maid Emily to taste the food she had prepared, and she agreed enthusiastically. Emily praised the deliciousness of the food, asserting that everyone would love it, while Seraphi hoped in secret that it would also win the crown prince's admiration. Her only wish was for the crown prince to eat from her food that day. Her dreams were interrupted by the arrival of the vice commander, who gave her a message from the crown prince stating that she had been granted permission to be in charge of the meals. But he added a shocking exception, that the crown prince would not eat anything as long as she was in the kitchen. Seraphi wondered in shock if the crown prince was planning to fast. She realized that her relationship with the crown prince had reached a dead end because of previous stalking acts, and that any attempt to apologize now would not work. She thought that if ordinary methods wouldn't move his heart, then she must do something with a strong impact to show him the extent of her desperation and her desire for change. She told the vice commander that she understood, and in that case, she would fast as well. The vice commander looked at her in total confusion, unable to understand her decision. She announced with a smile that she couldn't stand idly by and watch the crown prince suffer. Later, she was trembling with fear, realizing that she might die of hunger before the crown prince even thought about eating. Days passed, and Seraphi was following the crown prince while he trained, wondering how he could continue moving like this without food. Hunger began to affect her, and she felt a headache and dizziness, so she decided to look for a quiet place to rest. Suddenly, she lost her balance and felt as if she was going to fall. But before she fell, a strong hand caught her, and she found herself in the crown prince's arms, so she thanked him with a stammer. She looked at him in a state of shock, wondering how he appeared suddenly, as he was in another place a second ago. The crown prince asked her sharply what she was doing in this restricted area. She apologized to him, explaining that she felt a headache and dizziness. The crown prince looked at her with disdain and called her a fool, then grabbed her shoulder, warning her not to misunderstand the situation. He told her coldly that regardless of what she did, he would never open his heart to her. Then he whispered a single harsh word in her ear, calling her a killer. Shock was evident on Seraphi as she wondered to herself if she was truly a killer, realizing that there was something she was ignorant of regarding this character's past. The crown prince continued his hostile speech, denouncing her new tone and unfamiliar clothes while she was in confusion about the meaning of the word killer that he said. The crown prince accused her of pretending to be calm, but she decided within herself to maintain her composure, to focus on the current situation and postpone researching the matters she was ignorant of until later. He demanded angrily that she stop this ridiculous acting and return to acting naturally as he knew her. With complete calmness, she offered him an apology for everything that happened in the past. Her apology stunned the crown prince, as he did not expect that reaction from her. Then she made him a promise that she would not pursue his highness anymore. He looked at her with sarcasm and doubt, wondering how he was supposed to believe her. So she pointed out that she hadn't been near him during the past few days and assured him that this situation would continue, asking him not to worry. Accordingly, she suggested that he eat a meal now, but she realized that her attempt might not work, so she explained to him that fasting is used as a means of protest because of food's direct link to health. And she warned him that he might feel fine now, but he would soon get sick if he continued in this way. At that moment, extreme weakness overcame her, and she began to stagger while whispering a request for some food, only for the Crown Prince to rush to catch her and prevent her from falling. And after that incident, she succeeded in convincing the Crown Prince to eat. And while he was eating, signs of surprise appeared on his face from the taste he did not expect. The Crown Prince commented that it seemed the food was not bad to the point where it was impossible to eat, so Seraphi thanked him with gratitude. Later in her room, the word killer returned to occupy her thoughts, and she wondered seriously if she had actually killed someone. Anxiety prompted her to ask her maid Emily if she had committed some crime. She clarified her question more, wondering if she had killed someone, for example. Emily burst out laughing, asserting that this was impossible and that her mistress was not the type who would do something like that. Seraphi was surprised by her quick and definitive denial, so Emily offered to explain the matter since she didn't remember. Emily reminded her that despite her hatred of insects, she always felt bad about killing them and ordered her every time to release them instead of harming them. She added that the task of catching insects and releasing them was more difficult than just killing them, and Seraphi seemed to understand. And she apologized to Emily for previous troubles, saying that she could do as she pleased from now on, but Emily explained that this was not what she meant. Emily concluded her speech with an absolute confirmation that her mistress could never be a bad person who would harm any being. Seraphi thanked her maid for her words, who replied that she did nothing worthy of thanks. After that, the maid decided to go prepare the ingredients, while Seraphi wanted to wander around, so she wore a hooded robe and went out. On her tour, she witnessed a situation where a noble man was bullying a child from the common people, telling him that he was just one of the common people and did not need a doll. The nobleman continued his mockery, saying that the fate of the common people from birth until death is to be just worker ants. The child begged the man to return his toy, but the nobleman mocked it, describing it as a piece of worn-out cloth, and threatened to set it on fire. Seraphi interrupted the scene with a firm command, asking the man to stop, which drew his attention to her. Wondering about her identity, she suggested to him calmly that he return the toy to the child. But he met her request with a forced smile and asked her if the child really needed that toy, then threw it on the ground with contempt and ordered the child to pick it up. And her insolence aroused the anger of the nobleman, who wondered about her identity to act in this arrogant manner. But as soon as she removed her hood, the nobleman's features changed to astonishment, for he recognized her silver hair and purple eyes. He recognized her immediately, wondering in shock if she was Duchess Brinius. Seraphi ordered him in a tone that accepted no argument to apologize to the child and return his toy immediately. Her order aroused his resentment, and he wondered in anger how she could order him to do such a thing when he was a noble like her. She replied with a rhetorical question as to whether his family hadn't taught him that nobles cannot bully others without reason. He felt deeply insulted and realized that this insolent girl had made him look disgraceful. So he turned to leave. As he was leaving, he threw the toy toward the child with resentment and warned him to consider himself lucky and to be more careful in the future. Seraphi stopped him again and told him that if he had any objection to the child, he could visit Brinia's palace at any time, which made him quicken his steps and flee. Seraphi turned to the child and reassured him, telling him that if he was bullied again, he could visit her at any time, and the child agreed happily. The Crown Prince and his deputy were watching the situation from afar. Seraphi saw them and noticed that they seemed in a hurry. While she wanted to ask them if the food was delicious, she approached them and asked the Vice Commander, Demian, if something had happened. Demian told her that it seemed a different race in the north was causing trouble recently, and that he would be heading there within a few days to exterminate them. Seraphi expressed her concern that the mission was in a few days, considering this a bad thing. But Demian reassured her that it wasn't a big deal and that this had happened repeatedly before, and all they had to do was intervene to solve the problem. She offered to prepare large quantities of jerky for them that wouldn't spoil if they were going to battle, so Demian understood she was worried about his food. At that moment, an older man named Uncle Bart appeared and asked Seraphi if she was going with them as well. Bart explained to her that the mission would be difficult because it was in a wild forest, but Seraphi wondered who would prepare the food if she didn't go. Bart laughed and said that her going with them would be a great help to them. Seraphi asked him about the duration they planned to stay, as they would need to prepare the ingredients in advance. He replied that His Highness was coming too, so he didn't think it would take long, then asked the Crown Prince directly about how long the trip would take. The Crown Prince appeared suddenly and replied that it would take about a week. Seraphi was surprised by his sudden presence, while Bart welcomed the Crown Prince's joining, considering that it would speed up the end of the mission. Bart asked Seraphi if she heard the duration, and she replied in the affirmative. Then he asked her what she was preparing, and she told him that she intended to prepare jerky, but she heard from one of the shops that there was a magic spell to prevent food from spoiling, and that she would need to learn some magic. Bart told her that there are ingredients sold that already have magic on them, but they are expensive, which frustrated her. Seraphi was thinking that this was the first time she had gone into battle, and she never imagined that she would encounter that thing. which made her feel despair and repeat that this couldn't happen. As they were walking in the forest, Seraphi was panting from fatigue and wondering to herself how this couldn't happen while it was actually happening. She looked at the soldiers who were walking with ease and wondered how everyone could be perfectly fine in this situation. Astonishment took hold of her as she wondered if these people were truly human with their ability to bear this trouble. She turned to Demian and asked him hesitantly if they could move directly to their destination, reminding him that they had already moved to the forest entrance. Demian explained to her that large-scale teleportation is difficult in a forest where magical energy is mixed and unstable. Seraphi understood the matter, so Demian offered to arrange for her to leave the forest and inform the Crown Prince if the matter was beyond her capacity, but she refused and asserted that she would be fine. Demian noticed that she was straining herself heavily, so he told the Crown Prince about it, and he wondered if it was good to leave her like this while she was struggling to follow. The Crown Prince denounced Demian's sudden and excessive interest in a specific individual. Demian apologized immediately. The Crown Prince ordered him to stop worrying about her and focus only on the march. From a distance, the Crown Prince watched Seraphi as she sat to rest for a moment before she rose and continued her way. Seraphi was encouraging herself not to rely on others, reminding herself that she was no longer the old Seraphi who did as she pleased, and that she was now a mature and responsible person. She resolved that she could do it too. Suddenly, her foot tripped on something, and she looked to find a strange vine that had wrapped around her leg. She had hardly grasped what was happening before she felt a sharp pain in her shoulder. The vine grabbed her leg and began pulling her away from the path. She screamed for help as she fell and was swept away from the group. She fell on the ground in an unknown place inside the forest, panting with fear and fatigue, wondering where she was. A small child with pointed ears appeared before her, so she asked him about his identity. The child noticed that she was different from other humans, and he explained to her that it was strange, for he could hear the thoughts of ordinary humans, but he could hear nothing from her. Seraphi wondered in shock if he could read thoughts, and he confirmed that to her. In the camp, the soldiers were wondering if they would camp here tonight, and one of them answered that the scout party had not returned yet. The Crown Prince noticed Seraphi's absence and wondered where she went. Demian asked the Crown Prince about his destination, so he told him not to tell others and that he would go search for Seraphi himself. Meanwhile, Seraphi asked the child about her location and the reason he brought her here, and he answered that he knew the reason for the humans coming. He asked her directly if their goal was to kill them. Seraphi was shocked and realized that this child belonged to the heterogeneous race that was kidnapping people. The elf child angrily denied her accusation, asserting that they, as elves, do not do such things. The child realized that there seemed to be a serious misunderstanding, so Seraphi reassured him that there was no problem then, because the Crown Prince would never harm innocent people. The child questioned her words, pointing out that he could sense the presence of a large number of human weapons near them. Seraphi explained to him that they came here because they heard about the existence of heterogeneous beings harming people in this area. The child understood the matter, and since the elves do not attack humans, he concluded that Seraphi would not harm him. So she reassured him that she certainly wouldn't and asked him not to worry. The child told her she couldn't lie, which aroused her confusion. He explained to her that even if he couldn't hear her thoughts, he could distinguish her feelings and sense. Seraphi wondered to herself about the meaning of the word sense. The child answered that humans who lie emit the scent of lying, so Seraphi wondered if this was an animal instinct. Suddenly, the child felt something and asked her to hide. Two strange creatures with horns appeared, and one of them said she smelled human. The elf child came out to face them and ordered them to get out of here because this was not their area. The two creatures mocked him and described him as weak and incomplete. The female among them spotted Seraphi hiding behind the child and said she found her. Seraphi realized that these were the real heterogeneous race. She told the child that the situation was dangerous and they must flee. Then she embraced him, trying to protect him. But one of the creatures attacked them with its weapon. At the last moment, the Crown Prince appeared and repelled the attack, reproaching Seraphi for her recklessness again. The Crown Prince looked at the creatures that attacked them, and with one stroke of the sword, he finished them all. Seraphi looked at him in shock, so the Crown Prince asked her why she was here, and also wondered about the identity of those creatures. The Crown Prince pointed his sword toward the elf child and asked if he was the one who brought Seraphi here. Seraphi intervened quickly, explaining that the vines were pulling her and that this child was the one who saved her. The child whispered to Seraphi that he didn't like that man because his mind was too loud, so she reassured him, laughing that he was a good person. Annoyance was evident on the Crown Prince as he watched their interaction. The Crown Prince decided that it was time to return to the army. Suddenly, Seraphi felt a pain in her shoulder, so the Crown Prince asked her with concern if she was injured. He noticed that her shoulder was swollen and asked her what happened. Seraphi tried to downplay the injury, but she remembered what the Crown Prince had done to her, realizing that he was the one who did it. So he asked if those creatures were the cause of her injury, but she told the Crown Prince that the injury was not from them, that she was perfectly fine, and that the Crown Prince had saved her before they attacked her. The Crown Prince grabbed the elf child by his clothes, wondering if he was the one who harmed Seraphi. Seraphi denied that immediately and asked him to put down the child, who in turn was shouting, demanding the Crown Prince leave him, and introducing himself by the name Zephyr. The Crown Prince lifted Zephyr aside and demanded Seraphi tell him the truth about who caused her injury. Seraphi claimed she injured herself while exercising, but the Crown Prince did not believe her, pointing out that he had never seen her exercise. And he reminded her that despite her constant lectures to him about maintaining health, he could not count the number of times he saw her taking a nap immediately after finishing eating, which amazed her. Wondering when he saw her do that, Seraphi was in confusion. She wanted to be honest, but she didn't want to make things awkward either. The Crown Prince warned her that his patience was not long and ordered her to tell him the truth immediately. Under the influence of his words, which seemed like a spell, Seraphi admitted that the Crown Prince himself was the one who harmed her when he grabbed her shoulder and pushed her toward the wall. Seraphi realized that he used dragon speech to force her to tell the truth, and considered that unfair. The Crown Prince felt shock and regret for what he did, but he promised her that he would make sure she received proper treatment when they returned to the palace, asserting that a shoulder injury is not something to be taken lightly. Seraphi tried to reassure him that she was fine, and that the wound would heal quickly if a doctor or priest examined it. The Crown Prince agreed reluctantly, but asked her to tell him immediately if the pain increased. Seraphi thanked him for his concern. Their conversation was interrupted by Zephyr, who was still being held by the Crown Prince, asking him to put him down. The Crown Prince put him down on the ground sharply. Zephyr ran towards Seraphi and hugged her, which aroused the jealousy of the Crown Prince, who seemed very disgruntled with this child. Zephyr whispered to Seraphi that elves have healing abilities. Zephyr told Seraphi that her shoulder looked painful and offered to treat it for her, but the Crown Prince intervened quickly and pushed Zephyr's hand away from Seraphi, ordering him not to touch her. Zephyr shouted at the Crown Prince, explaining that he was only trying to treat the place that was injured because of the Crown Prince himself, and that if he truly felt bad, he shouldn't intervene. Zephyr told Seraphi that the treatment might tickle a little and asked her to endure it. Zephyr placed his hand on Seraphi's shoulder and began using his healing magic, but he was surprised that his magic did not work, even though he was sure it reached her. Seraphi reassured him that she was the type on whom magic does not work easily, but she wondered to herself why it didn't work, for she remembered from the novel that elven magic is very effective in treatment. The Crown Prince interrupted the situation, asking Seraphi to leave the child alone because they would return soon. Zephyr refused to let them leave. Seraphi asked him the reason, and Zephyr replied that there was something they both should know. Zephyr revealed his true identity, announcing that he was the leader of the humanoids in this forest. Zephyr's announcement that he was the leader of the humanoids caused shock for both Seraphi and the Crown Prince. Zephyr explained that he had not completed his coming-of-age ceremony yet, and therefore no one listens to what he says. He continued that the reason for the humanoids' rampage now, and the reason for the humans coming to this forest, is all because of this problem, the problem of the non-completion of his coming-of-age ceremony. Zephyr begged Seraphi to help him complete his coming-of-age ceremony, asserting that if she did so, then this forest and the people as well, none of them would have to be hurt anymore. But the Crown Prince refused. He explained that as an unwritten rule, they do not interfere in the affairs of other races and do not encroach upon their lands. But Seraphi ignored him and asked Zephyr how he completes the ceremony. Zephyr replied that to become an adult, he needs recognition from the elven god, but the god does not recognize him. Seraphi wondered about the reason. Zephyr answered sadly that he believes the reason is that he is an incomplete elf, and he revealed that he is half elf and half of another race, and that people call him a hybrid. But he added that there is one way to solve this problem, which is that if he gets married, the god might finally recognize him as an adult. The idea amazed Seraphi, and with all innocence, Zephyr asked Seraphi to marry him. The Crown Prince stood frozen in his place from the horror of the shock. Zephyr explained that if he does not become an adult, this forest will remain dangerous forever, and everyone will continue to get hurt because of him. Seraphi seemed as if she empathized with him, but the Crown Prince intervened firmly, announcing that he would not allow that. Seraphi tried to convince him, saying that the matter is unfortunate and that Zephyr is very pure and kind. The Crown Prince asked her angrily if she really planned to marry him just because she felt sorry for him. He added that besides that, he is a person she just met, and he is a child too. Seraphi hugged Zephyr while saying he is a poor thing. The Crown Prince tried to convince her that believing him just because he looks poor is not a good idea. Then he grabbed Zephyr and asked him his age, and he threatened him that he would force him to answer. Zephyr replied calmly that his age is 227 years, which shocked Seraphi. Zephyr tried to defend himself, explaining that the average age of elves is thousands of years, and that the standard is different from humans, and that he is still a small child, asking them not to misunderstand the matter. Then he turned to Seraphi, pleading with her not to hate him because he didn't mean to deceive her. But the Crown Prince pushed him to the ground. The Crown Prince asked Seraphi sarcastically if she still wanted to marry this 227-year-old old man. His description ignited Zephyr's anger, who shouted, demanding that he not call him an old man. Seraphi intervened and asked them both to calm down. Then she directed her speech to the Crown Prince, reminding him that the reason for their coming here was to subdue the rampaging humanoids. She continued, wondering if there was a way to resolve this matter peacefully instead of fighting and shedding blood. She added that in this case, they had no reason to ignore the problem, and if they could help, there was no reason not to cooperate. She suggested to the Crown Prince that they first go to meet the elven god, for perhaps they could persuade him. After a brief thought, the Crown Prince reluctantly agreed to meet this alleged god. But he warned Zephyr that if he brought up a ridiculous topic like marriage again, he would destroy this forest immediately, telling him to be prepared. Meanwhile, Zephyr was observing how the Crown Prince spoke with Seraphi, commenting that the Crown Prince was an unpleasant person and that he had twisted feelings toward Seraphi. Zephyr wished the Crown Prince were more honest with his feelings. Zephyr led them through the forest. They finally arrived at the elven village, which was a beautiful and dazzling place. But Seraphi noticed that everyone was hiding from them. She wondered if it was because they were not used to humans. The Crown Prince explained to her that they were afraid of humans. Seraphi asked him why. The Crown Prince told her that a long time ago, humans had committed a massacre against the humanoids. In the beginning, it was a legitimate fight against aggressive humanoids, but over time, the situation changed. The war they started to repel aggressors gradually lost its original purpose, and in the end, they began attacking indiscriminately. Before they realized it, hunting humanoids became a form of entertainment for humans. They would capture them for their unique appearances, sell them, force them to work until death, and boast of them as trophies. The Crown Prince added that this was an old story and that it was legally prohibited now. But he went on to say that wealthy nobles still buy and sell humanoids secretly in the shadows. Seraphi realized that this was why Raven in the novel despised the nobility. Seraphi approached one of the hiding elves and introduced herself calmly. Zephyr whispered to the elf that Seraphi was a kind-hearted person and that while the Crown Prince was another matter, she was an incredibly good person. Seraphi felt somewhat embarrassed, as she preferred not to be the center of attention. They followed Zephyr inside one of the buildings and climbed a long staircase. One of the elves approached her and asked hesitantly if Seraphi was human, so she reassured her that she was, and that she wasn't scary. Children began to approach her, admiring her beautiful scent and silver hair, and one of them even wished to braid it. Seraphi asked the children if they liked cookies, but they didn't know what they were. She took out a box full of cookies for them, explaining that they were a sweet and delicious snack, and offered for them to try. The children tasted the cookies and liked them very much, expressing how sweet and delicious they were. The Crown Prince was watching the situation from a distance in surprise. Some of the adult elves noticed that Seraphi possessed a pure and clear aura, and that she treated the children with kindness. More children approached her, admiring her shimmering hair. They praised the beauty and softness of her hair. She also commented on the beauty of her hair herself. The village leader stepped forward and welcomed Seraphi, asking her about her identity. Seraphi introduced herself with full respect as Seraphi de Brinius. The leader told her that her aura was truly clear and calm, and that she had a flow of energy that is difficult for humans to sense. Seraphi thanked him for his words gently. The leader asked her if she wished to meet the elven god. Seraphi confirmed her strong desire to help. The leader explained that the elven god resides in the heart of this forest, in a gap between worlds where pure energy gathers. He added that for a non-elven being, only the one who embodies primordial beauty is able to open that door. The phrase primordial beauty puzzled the Crown Prince, but Zephyr seemed confident that Seraphi would be fine, as she was pure, unlike a certain other person. The leader told Seraphi that they must first perform purification rituals to open the elven gate, and asked if she was mentally prepared. Seraphi agreed immediately. The leader turned to the Crown Prince and asked for his opinion. The Crown Prince replied that he did not know what these rituals involved, but he did not need them, and asked them to perform them for her alone. The leader understood and asked everyone to proceed toward the altar. Everyone stood before the altar. The leader placed his hand on a glowing blue stone, and he ordered Seraphi to close her eyes and face the darkness within her. In her inner darkness, she heard familiar voices accusing her of indifference and coldness, and that she said nothing but yes in any situation. The voices wondered if she truly loved, and how she was no different from the people outside. In fact, they didn't even believe she possessed feelings. She opened her eyes to find her tears falling, thinking that those memories had already faded. Seraphi wondered to herself why people get hurt even though she did nothing wrong, asserting that she didn't want to hurt anyone. She resolved that just because they were different from one another, it gave no one the right to hurt her. In that week, the gate opened before her with a bright light, which astonished the village leader and the others. A being resembling an elf with long white hair appeared from the gate, and the Crown Prince wondered if this was the elven god, noting that his aura was weaker than he imagined. Zephyr noticed that the Crown Prince could see the elven god even without the ritual, so he asked him about his true identity, but the Crown Prince asked him to remain ignorant because he would be shocked if he discovered the truth. The elven god addressed Seraphi, describing her as the human who hides primordial beauty within her, and asked what she wished to convey to him. Seraphi asked him to grant recognition to the leader who rules the various races in this forest so he could perform his role. The elven god answered her that everything has its appointed time, and that once preparations are complete, Zephyr would naturally become accepted as leader even if he didn't grant him recognition. He explained that this was an ordeal he must endure, and that this was not something someone else could do for him. Seraphi admitted that his words were true, but Zephyr interrupted, insisting that if they got married, the god would have to recognize him as an adult, and that he had brought a bride with him. Zephyr tried to persuade the god that Seraphi was very kind and had a beautiful heart, and that she always hugged him, making her an ideal candidate for a bride. And he reminded her that she was the one who told him he was cute, which embarrassed her, and she reluctantly admitted. Then he asked her to kiss him, because a kiss is necessary to complete the marriage. The crown prince grabbed Zephyr and pushed him away from her angrily, and he issued his final warning, ordering him to stay still. Seraphi interrupted the situation, addressing the elven god, pointing out that his words sounded a bit strange. The elven god asked her the reason for their strangeness. Seraphi told him that his words sounded selfish. Her words astonished the crown prince and the village leader. Seraphi confronted him, saying that he was the one who appointed him as leader, but he didn't allow him to hold his coming-of-age ceremony, and that the chaos in the forest started from this contradiction. She continued that because he cannot become an adult, he cannot become a leader, and because of that, the races that have no leader have spiraled out of control, leading to many people being hurt and blood being shed. She asked him as a god who protects nature if he thought it was right to leave this situation as it is. The elven god answered her that one does not grow without suffering, and that the child is currently developing his vessel, and others are merely waiting for that time. The crown prince set Zephyr on the ground, announcing that he had no time to listen to this meaningless logic. Zephyr surprised everyone by saying he agreed with him. The crown prince commented that this was the first time they agreed on something. Then he turned to the elven god, challenging him and asking if he had bestowed the title of elven god upon himself, and ordered him to do as he pleased, whether testing the vessel or breaking it, but without making a fuss and in a quiet corner of the forest. Then he announced that he was the crown prince of this empire, and ordered the god not to play the role of an irresponsible spectator in his presence. And he threatened him that if he did not recognize Zephyr as leader immediately, he would overthrow him and install a new god of his own making in his place. The elven god explained that he was a being identical to nature itself, and arrogantly denounced that a human would dare to oppose him, describing his action as absolute arrogance. The crown prince replied sarcastically, asking if the god claimed to be nature, then challenged him to see which of them was truly closer to it. Suddenly, a powerful black aura began to emit from the crown prince, transforming into a massive black dragon. The scene left everyone stunned. The elven god felt fear, realizing that this was something even the spirits of the earth could not endure. The crown prince threatened him that he would continue talking, but he would only listen to his lecture after he knelt on his knees. Under the immense pressure, the elven god knelt in pain and announced his agreement to hold the coming-of-age ceremony. He ordered those present to prepare the ceremony, announcing that he would bless the child, which astonished the village leader and Zephyr. After the matter was done, the god turned to leave, announcing that this should be enough. The crown prince felt exhausted after using his power, so Seraphi asked him with concern if he was all right. He angrily ordered her not to approach him. Seraphi looked at him with concern, while the crown prince was seeing overlapping images of her surrounded by a dark aura. The crown prince was in a state of rampage, shouting for her to go away, and he released a massive force toward her, yelling not to come near him. Everyone watched the scene in shock. Seraphi fell to the ground unconscious. The crown prince looked at what he had done in shock and horror. Zephyr rushed to her, trying to rouse her. Seraphi woke up to find herself in a strange place surrounded by blue roses and saw Zephyr beside her. Zephyr assured her that it was him and asked if she was all right. She wondered what had happened, for she remembered going to get recognition from the elven god, and Zephyr told her that Raven, the crown prince, had a sudden rampage and pushed her, causing her to fall. Seraphi recalled her memory, realizing that everything that happened was his fault. She asked Zephyr if the elven god had finally recognized him. Seraphi congratulated him on that, but Zephyr seemed confused. He said stammeringly that it didn't matter. Before he left, Zephyr told her there was something she should know, and he warned her about Raven, saying he feels like he will go crazy when he is near him, and that he is like a ticking time bomb that could explode at any moment. He asked her not to forget what he just told her. Seraphi thought about his words and realized she had no other choice, and that it was a mistake to believe that years of hatred could be easily erased. She admitted that this was true, and that if her presence beside him caused him more pain, then perhaps it would be better to... While the village leader was contemplating the beauty of the stars that night, he noticed that the crown prince seemed lost in thought. The leader told him that when he sees beautiful stars, other beautiful things in their hearts often come to mind. He asked the crown prince what he thought of when he looked at the stars, and he replied that they weren't necessarily beautiful things. He explained that he thought of only one person who had been occupying his mind a lot lately, which piqued the leader's curiosity. The crown prince described this person as the worst kind of person, someone he wished to have nothing to do with. The leader wondered if he hated this person to that extent, and the crown prince confirmed that she was indeed a desperately terrible person. The crown prince recalled his memories of the old Seraphi, how she lacked morals and values. was always selfish and justified her bad behavior, describing her as a truly desperate human being. But one day, she suddenly changed completely and began to care for the weak, which she had never done before. He saw her taking care to prepare fresh food for the soldiers tired from intensive training and asking her maid to take a rest. She worked every day, always thinking of others, and selflessly dedicated herself to them regardless of difficulties, as if she had become a completely different person. In the beginning, the Crown Prince believed that all this was just acting, and that she was trying to deceive him and gain his trust to trap him, and that she was plotting some scheme. He mocked her actions, believing he would never be fooled, but every time he looked at her, he felt that her smile was real. Although he knew that all this might be a lie, it still affected him deeply. At a certain moment, he began to wish that all this were real. He admitted to the leader that if she returned to her old self again, he believed he would feel even more uncomfortable than he was before he knew her in her current form. He felt relieved when she began acting like a normal human, and wondered if it was unfair that she continued to change so much. He told the leader that he could understand from this that his feelings are not of the type he imagines, and that this is the story of a broken-hearted man suffering from trauma. The leader reminded the Crown Prince of the phrase, "Only those who possess primordial beauty can meet the god," and the Crown Prince admitted it was a vague phrase. The leader asked him if he thought it was too vague, which astonished the Crown Prince, wondering how he knew that. The leader asked him if he had ever thought about the meaning of the word beautiful. He explained to him that beauty means one's existence being in its correct state. In other words, one being in their true and ideal form. And he told the Crown Prince that everything that makes him who he is will one day reach balance and harmony, and thus become complete. The leader commented that beautiful is a truly beautiful word. The Crown Prince realized that if beautiful meant one's true and ideal form, then the condition for meeting the god is to be naturally true to oneself. This means that Seraphi is now in her true and ideal form. The Crown Prince concluded that the possibility of her returning to her previous personality is zero, while the leader commented that the stars were exceptionally beautiful that night. The next day, with the help of the Elven village, all members of the expeditionary force were able to return to the castle without any difficulty, except for Seraphi and Emperor Raven. Zephyr was clinging to Seraphi, refusing to let her go, while the Crown Prince asked her how long she would tolerate his selfishness. Seraphi promised Zephyr that she would come back to play with him again. Seraphi made a promise to Zephyr that she would come back to visit him, which she confirmed with full seriousness. Zephyr took her promise in another way and suggested with an innocent smile that they get married the next time they meet, which aroused the displeasure of the Crown Prince who was standing beside them. The Crown Prince turned and began activating a magical teleportation circle, announcing that it was time to leave, while Seraphi called him anxiously asking him to wait for her. Panic seized her as she saw him gradually disappearing within the magical light, as she thought for a moment he would leave her behind alone. But the Crown Prince suddenly grabbed her arm and pulled her toward him to embrace her firmly inside the teleportation circle, and asked her disapprovingly what she was doing, and if she really wanted to be left behind, criticizing her for standing still as if she had never teleported before. Seraphi answered him in confusion that she was absent-minded for a few moments, so the Crown Prince advised her in a serious tone not to accept everything asked of her so easily. Zephyr waved to them in goodbye enthusiastically and thanked Seraphi for everything, while the Crown Prince's cold gazes watched the situation. The Crown Prince bowed to the Elven village leader in silent respect, bidding him farewell. As soon as they arrived at their destination, Seraphi lost her balance and fell to the ground because she was not used to teleportation. The Crown Prince looked at her with resentment and asked sarcastically how she could be so confused, and if she lost her muscle mass when her head hit, while she was thinking to herself, hoping he wouldn't delve into the matter, and she replied to him with indifference. She sat on the ground thinking about the fact that she came from a world where magic does not exist, and that this was the first time she experienced teleportation, wondering in concern if she would be able to survive in this world. The Crown Prince extended his hand to her and asked her how long she intended to sit like this, asking her to rise. She looked at his extended hand in shock, wondering to herself about the reason for his sudden kindness, for he usually paid her no attention. She thanked him hesitantly while holding his hand to stand, with confusion still controlling her regarding the change that had occurred in him. She remembered Zephyr's warning to her to be careful, and that the Crown Prince might lose control of himself, so she wondered anxiously if he was putting too much pressure on himself, and what would happen if his anger actually exploded. Her thoughts were interrupted by the voice of the Crown Prince, who told her that he was unable to talk to her last night because the time was late. Then he surprised her by offering a formal and explicit apology for pushing her hard earlier, leaving her in a state of daze. As she recalled Zephyr's warning that the Crown Prince is like a ticking time bomb, he continued his apology that he didn't mean to hurt her. So Seraphi interrupted him anxiously, asking him to stop and not to pressure himself further. She reassured him that she was fine and asked him not to worry about her. and to treat her as he usually did, which aroused his confusion as he wondered what she meant by that. She continued her request pleadingly, which increased the Crown Prince's confusion. She explained in her secret that she was asking him to ignore her, despise her, and insult her as he always did. And as evidence of the success of their mission, it seemed that Zephyr had successfully completed his coming-of-age ceremony. For less than a day after the team's return, the incidents caused by the humanoids stopped completely. And thus, the Destian army regained its quiet daily life once again. But this quiet did not last long, as some soldiers were surprised by Seraphi's voice pleading with one of them to insult her, which struck them with extreme shock. They poked their heads from behind one of the pillars in confusion, wondering what was happening and the identity of the person she was talking to. Vice Commander Demian stepped forward and told them that some people preparing for the festival play had lost their way, and asked them to move away to avoid any problems. It seemed the soldiers were convinced by this explanation, and one of them wondered if this was all there was to it, for he thought something serious had happened, while another commented that the idea of a play seemed a bit strange. Meanwhile, Demian was rebuking the Crown Prince, reminding him that he had warned him repeatedly against saying such things in public where there are many eyes watching them, while Seraphi was standing beside him apologizing. Demian directed his speech to Seraphi, explaining that her releasing statements that might be misunderstood out loud in broad daylight is problematic, then turned to the Crown Prince to tell him that entering into a loud argument with a woman is completely unacceptable. So the Crown Prince replied that the reason was that she said something strange. Demian interrupted him angrily, announcing that this does not matter now, and that maintaining the Crown Prince's dignity is what maintains order in the Imperial Palace and in Destian as a whole. Demian continued his stern rebuke, shouting and wondering how many times he had to repeat his words, but his shout was suddenly cut off by a sharp pain. Demian fell to the ground unconscious while spitting blood, so the Crown Prince and Seraphi rushed toward him with great concern, and the Crown Prince called him by name in panic. In a medical room, the Crown Prince asked the treating doctor about Demian's condition, and the doctor answered after a short thought that Demian was in a deep sleep, and it seemed he was suffering from sleep deprivation, which puzzled Seraphi. The Crown Prince wondered in surprise if he was just asleep, while Seraphi pointed out with concern the large amount of blood that came out of his nose and mouth. So the doctor explained that sleep deprivation in any form inevitably leads to health deterioration. The doctor advised them that by avoiding stressful situations and getting enough sleep and rest, Demian would recover quickly. The doctor added that achieving this requires cooperation from those around him, asking them for help in this matter. So the Crown Prince agreed reluctantly, while Seraphi replied with a nervous laugh, confirming that she would cooperate, of course. As they were walking in one of the palace corridors, Seraphi wondered with concern if Mr. Demian would be all right, so the Crown Prince reassured her that there was no need to worry. Seraphi was surprised by his excessive confidence, so he answered her simply that he had asked Demian himself. He explained to her that Demian had been suffering from the inability to sleep for years, but this matter hadn't caused him any health problems before. Seraphi thought that Demian was suffering from an illness she didn't know about, for he always seemed calm and composed, and she guessed his condition might be insomnia. The Crown Prince asserted that in any case, exposing him to more stress is not good, then asked Seraphi to make her annoying statements in a place where there is no one, which made her wonder in confusion about which statements he was talking about. She offered him an apology and asked him if she had embarrassed him with what she said earlier, so anger was evident on his features. He asked her with extreme anger if she was asking seriously or if she was mocking him, and she answered him that she didn't understand the reason for his anger. She explained to him that she said that only because she wanted to make him feel a little better, so he repeated her question back to her in astonishment, wondering if she had asked him to ignore her, despise her, and insult her for his own benefit. She explained her logic to him, saying that he should ignore, despise, and insult her, because that is the way he always treated her. And she continued that she told him that he shouldn't force himself to be kind, wondering what the problem was in that. She guessed in herself that the reason might be that she, the person he is supposed to hate intensely, acts as if she will sacrifice herself for him, and he doesn't like that. But she reassured herself that if this is the case, there's no need to worry. She decided to announce her decision while the opportunity was available, so she told him with a broad smile not to worry, and that, as of this day, she would resign. And she continued her words asserting that she would disappear, so his eyes would not fall on her again. So he looked at her in total shock and asked her what she just said. Seraphi felt overwhelming happiness, thinking that the solution is not to be in his field of vision, and wondered how she hadn't thought of this before, and resolved that she would give him his freedom. But her happiness didn't last long for. She remembered the kitchen matter and wondered in concern who would do the cooking if she resigned from her job. She asked the Crown Prince hesitantly if she could work for a little while longer until they find a new chef. The Crown Prince turned to leave while whispering that she is still as selfish as she always was, then told her coldly to do as she pleased, and that she never listened to his opinion before. Seraphi watched him walking away, thinking that it's strange, for this wasn't the way things were supposed to go. She wondered about the reason for his reaction that seemed like he had been hurt, and felt that she had committed a grave mistake. Later, while two soldiers were walking in the palace, Seraphi offered them a greeting, so the other soldier returned the greeting. Confusion appeared on the first soldier as he repeated, "Tomorrow at noon." So his companion asked him about the destination of the one he was talking to, wondering if he had seen a ghost or something of the sort. The crown prince appeared from behind them suddenly and asked disapprovingly if there were ghosts in Destian, so the two soldiers were terrified and called him by his title in extreme confusion. The two soldiers denied the matter immediately, asserting that it must have been a mistake on their part, and explained that they thought they saw Seraphi there, but it was just an optical illusion. The crown prince looked at them while crossing his arms and merely said that he understood the matter. Seraphi felt relief because she managed to escape him, for it was almost revealed, and she denounced in herself how she had cut all this distance away from the office only to find him there. She recalled in her mind Zephyr's warning to her that Raven is like a ticking time bomb, and that approaching him makes one lose their senses. So she decided that she must maintain a distance between them, for both of their sakes. While she was thinking about that, she realized it would be difficult to avoid bumping into him while wandering, so she wondered if there was a place she could hide and rest. Her feet led her to the Imperial Palace Library, which was massive and majestic as expected. She began wandering between the towering shelves, wondering to herself if she would find any romance novels among these books. But what caught her attention was a title completely different from her interests. A book about practical cooking magic, which brought back memories of her school days and made her wonder if such titles existed in all worlds. She didn't know that the Crown Prince was in the same place, browsing books in another corner of the library. She sat at one of the tables and became absorbed in reading the book, while he was watching her from a distance. Her concentration was interrupted by a sudden creaking sound, so she raised her head to find him standing before her, asking her seriously if she had transformed into a completely different person. He told her that lately she defies his expectations every time, so panic took hold of her inside, wondering why he is here, and why he continues appearing everywhere she goes. He asked her disapprovingly if his presence here was forbidden, so she replied in confusion that she was just wondering about the reason for his coming. He answered that he had always loved reading, and therefore he frequents the library often, then pointed out that this was the first time he saw her reading a book, which made her think to herself sarcastically that seeing someone like her reading must be shocking news. She explained to him that she entered driven by curiosity, then saw a book about cooking magic and began reading it. The Crown Prince was surprised by her interest in a magic book, so she explained to him that she heard that if she learned cooking magic, she would be able to cook more easily, and also storing food would become easier. Then, the Crown Prince asked her about the reason for her exerting all this effort now when she has announced that she will resign, which surprised her and made her wonder about the reason for his question. So she simply answered him that this is her job, and she continued explaining that if she could prepare tastier food more easily and quickly, it's natural she would want to learn. It seemed her words had convinced him, so he smiled a slight smile and said that he understands the matter. Their conversation was interrupted by the voice of an elegant lady who expressed her surprise at seeing them together in this place. She stepped forward and greeted the Crown Prince and Seraphi, saying it had been a long time. She asked them with a cunning smile what they were talking about while they were alone. She expressed her surprise at seeing them together in a place like this, and she continued her speech saying that their presence alone in a dimly lit place might arouse suspicion and push people to conclude wrong things. The lady asked the Crown Prince if he was worried, but he answered her coldly that he wasn't. The Crown Prince announced to her that he was busy and would leave now, and turned away from the lady. But the lady turned toward Seraphi suddenly and asked her how long it had been, and if she had felt lonely in her absence. Confusion took hold of Seraphi, who didn't recognize the lady's identity, but she guessed from her informal way of speaking that they must be friends, so she answered her in confusion that she didn't remember how long it had been. The lady reminded her that she was grumbling intensely about her traveling on a 3-month trip, and wondered how she forgot the matter so quickly. So Seraphi was struck with embarrassment as she claimed that the matter had slipped her mind. The lady commented on the big change in her appearance, clothes, and makeup, saying she looks like a completely different person, and asked her if something had happened to her, while Seraphi was in confusion. Then she approached her to examine her closely with a curious look, while she was thinking about the matter. The lady added that Seraphi's presence in the library was a surprise in itself, then whispered to her sarcastically that they don't sell dresses here. So Seraphi answered her calmly that she stopped by the library by chance and decided to read a book as long as she was there. The lady met her words with surprise and disapproval, wondering if she was joking again, and reminded her that she used to hate books and described them as boring, and wondered sarcastically since when she began pretending to be a researcher, and concluded that seeing Seraphi reading books is truly surprising. Seraphi explained that she felt the book might be interesting and useful in cooking, which piqued the lady's curiosity. The lady commented that she is truly amusing with her interest in cooking now, so Seraphi wondered to herself if she was praising her or mocking her. The lady suggested to her to leave this place that doesn't suit her and go shopping, and told her that her favorite designer is there, and that his new collection of dresses has just been released, inviting her to go together to see it. Seraphi thought she didn't know who her favorite designer was, but she apologized gently, saying she wishes to read more books and study magic now. The mention of magic surprised the lady greatly. The Crown Prince was watching them from a distance and commented that this response seems more logical for the original Seraphi character, who preferred to hire a wizard instead of learning magic herself. Seraphi was in confusion, thinking about what she should say so as not to arouse her friend's suspicions. She told her that she has changed her mind recently and that she might have acted in a certain way in the past, but she is different now. She added that reading books is fun and cooking is rewarding, and that she feels happy when everyone enjoys her food. She admitted to her friend that, frankly, even when she reads books, she doesn't understand what they say, and that she hasn't been able to understand a single page so far. But she added with a smile that despite that, it's fun. The Crown Prince watched the situation carefully while the lady looked at her with strange expressions, then commented that she looks like a completely different person. The lady changed the subject suddenly and said she wouldn't stand in her way today, and suggested they go together next time, so Seraphi agreed reluctantly. The lady turned to leave, but she thought to herself with a wicked look that she doesn't know what happened to Seraphi, but she certainly won't be able to leave her ever. After her departure, Seraphi decided she needed to read a slightly easier book today. The next day, Seraphi met the same lady again and recognized her as the girl she met yesterday, whose name seems to be Rosaline. And Rosalind had come to the library to search for books about fashion. Rosalind suggested again that they go shopping since they have met, and buy that dress from the designer she mentioned yesterday. Seraphi tried to apologize, explaining she came here to read. Rosalind expressed her annoyance, reminding her that she refused her invitation yesterday too, and wondered if they were no longer friends. Seraphi denied that strongly, and tried to clarify the matter that she really wanted to read, but Rosalind thought to herself that she knew she would never give up on her. Rosalind showed her happiness and invited her to join her today, so Seraphi agreed reluctantly. Rosalind pulled her with her enthusiastically, and Seraphi felt she had been swept away in her fast pace. While they were walking, Seraphi decided she would read the book tomorrow. Rosalind thought to herself sarcastically that Seraphi is truly a fool, and that she has fallen into her grip completely. But Seraphi felt that something was strange, for Rosalind said they would go to see the dresses. And when they arrived, another lady welcomed them, and Rosalind told her she heard that the new collection had been released, so she came to see it. Seraphi guessed that the original Seraphi character must have come here often, but she added to herself that that character wasn't normal anyway. The lady showed them this season's new collection, which consisted of a hat and clothes of strange design, which aroused Seraphi's extreme surprise. Seraphi suddenly remembered the ridiculous dresses that the original character possessed, and wondered if she had bought them all from this place, for they were strange dresses to the point it's difficult to distinguish them from pieces of worn-out cloth. Rosalind asked her opinion on the new collection, considering it cute, so Seraphi answered hesitantly that it's good, but she thought to herself that the decorations are exaggerated and eccentric. Rosalind suggested she try on one of the dresses because it would look suitable for her, but Seraphi refused gently, and Rosalind insisted that she try them. The shop owner joined them and offered Seraphi another dress, asserting it would be great on her, but Seraphi tried to evade. Seraphi announced loudly that she has a lot of dresses at home and she is fine, in her attempt to end the situation. Both Rosalind and the shop owner laughed, considering she was joking, but Seraphi asserted that she wasn't joking at all. Seraphi had to invent another excuse, so she claimed she had exhausted all her allowance and would return to buy another time, which aroused their extreme surprise, and made Seraphi think that these people are surprised by everything normal, she says. Rosalind asked her if she didn't have money, so Seraphi answered that her father told her he would kick her out if she spent money as she pleased, which made Rosalind comment with surprise that she didn't expect the Duke to say that. Rosalind mocked Seraphi indirectly, but Seraphi thought that it's strange that her friends are eccentric like her, and that Rosalind's taste in clothes is very strange. Rosalind tried on one of the strange hats and asked Seraphi her opinion, so Seraphi likened her and herself to a peacock. The shop owner praised Rosalind's taste, who decided to buy the hat. And Rosalind continued choosing more clothes and thanked the shop owner for her help. After finishing shopping, the shop owner bid them farewell warmly, looking forward to their next visit. Seraphi told Rosalind she would return home, but Rosalind asked her to wait for a moment, which aroused Seraphi's resentment. Rosalind surprised her by presenting a gift to her, saying she chose it for her. Rosalind explained she couldn't buy any souvenirs from her trip and asked her to be satisfied with this gift as an alternative. Seraphi realized this was the reason Rosalind insisted on inviting her to shop, for she was feeling bad because she didn't bring her a gift. Seraphi was in confusion. She appreciated this gesture, but she couldn't accept the dress she saw earlier and wondered what she should do in such a situation. Rosalind asked her in a sad tone if her gift was annoying to her. Seraphi recalled painful memories from her previous life, where she always felt she was the only one who cared for others, and how some accused her that she has no feelings. and that no one loves her. She realized she was indeed indifferent to others. Seraphy decided she must express her feelings in words so they reached the other person, so she apologized to Rosalind, saying she didn't mean to hurt her. She thanked Rosalind for her gift and promised her she would cherish it, which made Rosalind very happy, who told her she would have been frustrated if she didn't accept it. Rosalind asked her opinion on the gift, so Seraphy thought that she wouldn't wear the dress anyway, but she answered her with some hesitation that she thanks her, and she is right. So Rosalind showed her happiness that the design had won her admiration, while Seraphy was sure that this whole matter was a trap. Rosalind noticed that Seraphy hadn't been putting on makeup lately, and asked her if she had forgotten how to put it on, and offered to put it on her herself. She invited her enthusiastically to go to her house. The request to go now surprised her, and she felt shock. Seraphy began feeling dizzy and tired, and thought she might collapse if the matter continued in this way, and that she needs to return home and rest. She apologized to Rosalind and told her she would return now, so Rosalind showed her disappointment, but she understood the matter as long as she was tired. Seraphy thanked Rosalind, and the latter suggested they play until morning next time. The last words gave Seraphy chills and exhaustion just thinking about them. After returning to the palace, she fell to the ground from sheer exhaustion, whispering that she could no longer even stand. Rosalind's wicked words echoed in her mind as she imagined her inviting her to play until morning, making her scream, asking her to stop. Meanwhile, in the library, Rosalind was wandering among the books, feeling bored, wondering when Seraphy would come and what they could do for fun today. Suddenly, she felt someone nearby, but she saw no one, so she guessed she was imagining things. While Seraphy was hiding behind one of the shelves, feeling she had miraculously survived and deciding she had to get out of there immediately. Later, the Crown Prince was walking in one of the corridors, and one of his guards asked him if he was going to the library again today. The guards commented that the Crown Prince was a truly amazing person. They had known him since he was a child and had never seen him slack off from his work even for a single day. The Crown Prince arrived at his destination feeling exhausted, wishing he could take a nap like someone he knew. While he heard the soldiers whispering about his physical strength and envying him, he thought that if he could, he would lie down on the ground right now, just like Seraphy, who was sprawled out there. He approached her and asked what she was doing there, and she was startled and called him by his title in shock. Seraphy began to explain the situation to him in great confusion, clarifying that she went to the library and found Rosalind waiting for her. And when she tried to escape, she thought Rosalind might see her, so she ended up crawling on the ground. The Crown Prince looked at her, thinking that she possessed a true talent for provoking people's anger in new ways every day. He told her that he was about to head to the library himself, and she replied that this was good for him. He wondered if that was all, and she asked him if there was something else. He told her that he couldn't help but feel sorry for her as she crawled on the cold floor, and offered to help her just this once, but she politely refused his request. The Crown Prince offered to bring her the book she wanted, but she told him that it was fine and that she had already gotten used to this place. So the Crown Prince wondered in amazement how she adapted so quickly, and she asked him to take care of himself anyway. He was shocked by her reply. Her words puzzled him. He had gone out of his way to be kind to her, but she rejected him while lying on the ground, then told him to take care of himself. How did she dare do that? He thought angrily that this was the height of insolence and wondered if a charge of insult should be brought against her. Anger possessed him as he thought that until recently she was following him everywhere, so why was she suddenly treating him as if she hated him? He recalled past situations when she would ask him why he didn't eat the cookies she prepared, and he would answer that he didn't want them. And when she would ask him why he always treated her like someone he hated, he would answer frankly because he actually hated her. He felt he was in no position to say anything about the matter. In another situation, Rosalind surprised him with her appearance, saying what a coincidence it was to meet him in such a place, and offered him some cookies she had baked. And she offered for him to have some if he liked. Later, one of the soldiers was eating cookies happily and told his comrade that the Crown Prince gave them to him suddenly when he said he was hungry. The soldier was starving and felt dizzy. His comrade told him to stop the silly joking and eat the cookies, for the Crown Prince was busy now. But one of the soldiers spat out the cookies in disgust, wondering what this disgusting thing was, while Seraphy watched the situation from a distance. The soldier commented that he had fallen into the Crown Prince's trap and wondered what he did to make him hate him so much. The soldier realized that the Crown Prince might have learned that he was the one who sent the happiness letter. Suddenly, the Crown Prince appeared behind Seraphy, realizing that this was the soldier's doing, which aroused her confusion. And he told her that he didn't know about the matter before, and therefore he had besieged Demian, and that he would apologize to him later. Seraphy turned to him, wondering what he would do with the boy who sent the letter and what he would do about him. He answered with sarcastic coldness that he was thinking of cutting off his head, so she froze in her place from the horror of the words. But he soon laughed, saying he was only joking. Seraphy felt terrified, thinking it was truly scary when it comes from someone capable of actually doing it, even if it was just a joke. The Crown Prince sat beside her and told her he would tell her something interesting because he had frightened her, and asked her if she knew that this place where they are sitting cannot be seen from the library, which surprised her. Then he presented her with the book she wanted to read, and she asked him in wonder how he knew that. He answered that she was repeating all the time that she wanted to learn cooking magic, And that of course he would know, for there is nothing in Destian hidden from him. Seraphie wondered to herself if she should take the book from him. The Crown Prince ordered her to take it, but she refused, saying she was fine. So he insisted, asking for the reason. She shouted in his face that she was trying to maintain a distance between them, and that staying with her was dangerous. She continued that this was for his own protection, begging him to understand. But he described her words as terrible and demanded she explain herself. Seraphie began to explain while feeling embarrassed. She told him that the elf told her that if she stayed by his side, his feelings would become unstable and he would turn into a ticking time bomb that could explode at any moment. He replied, wondering if that elf was the one who told her to stay away from him, and she answered in the affirmative. He shouted in her face angrily, asking her to compose herself and not let a child's words affect her like that. She told him that elves have sharp instincts and can read human feelings, and that the elf said his feelings only become unstable when she is near him. He replied angrily, asserting that he knew that. He explained to her that they were in a dangerous forest where anything could happen, and she was the only civilian there, and that it was strange for him not to be tense about her. She apologized to him, saying she didn't know he thought that way, and that she truly thought he hated her. He advised her not to misunderstand, and that he is committed to his position as a prince. And regardless of his personal feelings, protecting people is his duty. He added that he possesses power on a completely different level from ordinary citizens, and that the matter was nothing special for him. And he didn't do it out of affection for her, asking her not to misunderstand. She replied that she didn't. The Crown Prince thought angrily that that elf was spreading ridiculous rumors, and that he must go to the forest now to discipline him, while Seraphie was in confusion, not knowing what to do. She wondered if this was the only magic book. She wished there were more books like this, for the more there were, the more useful they would be for study. But she realized that the problem was that she couldn't go to the library. She thought of a solution to this problem while looking at the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince asked her if she needed more, and she rejoiced in secret because her plan had succeeded. He asked her if she had studied magic before, for he had never heard that she had done so, and she answered that this was the first time. He was surprised that she was reading books then, wondering how she did it. She answered that the reason was that she wanted to learn magic. His confusion increased, and he asked her about the reason for her reading books when she hadn't learned magic before, explaining that she wouldn't understand them. Then he asked her if she had taken the magical ability test. His words puzzled her, and she wondered what this test was. He looked at her hesitantly for a moment, then asked her to follow him. Seraphie thought that learning magic requires a basic condition. For one, first had to make sure they possessed magical ability, which is the power necessary to use magic. Thus, she finally found herself coming to take this fateful test. She stood before a massive door and asked the Crown Prince if this was the place where they could measure magical power, and he confirmed that to her. Before she stepped forward, the Crown Prince told her there was something she must do first, which puzzled her. He grabbed her injured shoulder, and from his palm, a mysterious celestial light emitted. Seraphie felt amazement as she whispered that the pain was gone. She asked him in daze how he did that, and he answered that there was nothing special about it, and that once she learns magic, she will be able to do that too, which aroused her enthusiasm and desire to learn it soon. In short, Seraphie realized that he treated her shoulder so she could lift something, so she thought he did it for that purpose. But he told her there was no need for thanks. The Crown Prince pointed to an ordinary-looking stone and explained to her that the test was simple. All she had to do was hold it, for it is a stone that becomes lighter the stronger the magical power of its holder, and he warned her against underestimating it, for people with weak magical power cannot even lift it, and one might get hurt if they take it lightly. Seraphie extended her hand toward the stone, but she lifted it with total ease with one hand, which struck both Seraphie and the Crown Prince with daze alike. She wondered if this was the right stone, for she felt it was just an ordinary stone, but the Crown Prince assured her that this stone had never left this hall. The Crown Prince recalled in his memory how the elf's magic did not affect her the previous time, and a staggering possibility crossed his mind. Seraphie called his name while looking at the stone in confusion. The Crown Prince told her that perhaps they should perform some other tests. She looked at him in total confusion, not understanding what was going on. Seraphie suddenly found herself surrounded by a large group of wizards wearing strange robes, while the Crown Prince stood beside her. One of them wondered why they were all summoned. The wizards looked as if they hadn't seen sunlight for a long time. One of them grumbled about the intensity of the light, and another wondered how long he had spent in his laboratory. Horror possessed her as she looked at them, and she thought of escaping before it was too late, while she wondered in confusion what was happening now. The Crown Prince reassured her that it wasn't dangerous, and that he would test her now, but she thought that the presence of all these people certainly meant the matter was significant, and asked him about the type of test. He explained to her that they would test her personality type and the type of magic that affects her by having people use magic on her, which struck her with extreme shock. She asked him in amazement if he was using her as a test subject. He answered with a cunning smile that it was something like that, which made her freeze in her place from horror. The wizards showed their extreme enthusiasm and wondered if they could use any kind of magic, and lined up in a queue, suggesting turning her into a cat or a dog. They were interrupted by one of the senior wizards, who asked the old wizard if he wanted to test whether her ability could be neutralized, and wondered about the source of this magic and what the goal of this test was. The old wizard answered that he didn't know. His answer aroused the resentment of the wizard, who wondered if they should conduct more research on magic neutralization techniques, and if the defensive magic they created wasn't enough, and reminded him that he had praised them when they announced its update the previous day. The wizard shouted in the face of his colleagues, who asked him what was happening, saying that he didn't know either, and that they should ask the Crown Prince themselves if they were curious. The Crown Prince addressed the wizards, explaining that their cooperation would help him a lot, and that he was researching magic and wanted the senior wizards to test it, and promised them a suitable reward. The Crown Prince's words impressed and touched the wizards. They enthusiastically announced that they would do their best for the Crown Prince, and would pour all their energy into this matter, and that it was time to show their true abilities. One of the wizards stepped toward Seraphi and announced it was time to start. One of the wizards began casting a spell aimed at lengthening Seraphi's hair, but nothing happened at all. Another wizard tried a spell to turn her into a cat, but once again, nothing happened, and the wizard commented that there was no reaction. The failed attempts continued. Someone even tried to turn her into a man, but in the end, nothing happened at all. The wizards praised the Crown Prince, expressing their admiration for the perfection of his experimental magic. The Crown Prince thanked them for their hard work, and they praised his humility, considering that his name would be recorded in history. Then they asked permission to leave, and Seraphi felt relief. After their departure, the Crown Prince felt exhausted from the presence of all these people, and Seraphi noticed that he was an introverted person. The Crown Prince told her he was expecting that, but her body was stranger than he imagined. He explained to her that she has a body that repels or neutralizes any magic cast upon her, and that is why the elf's healing magic and the wizard's magical power didn't work on her. No magic or magical power can affect her, except for one person. He pointed to himself, saying that this person is him, which aroused her extreme surprise. He told her that he knows what she is thinking, and that her face expressions reveal her question, why? And that they are having a real conversation now. He admitted that, frankly, he doesn't know the reason either, but the indisputable fact is that only his magic was able to affect her. Seraphi wondered to herself if the matter was complicated because she was inhabiting another body, or if the original Seraphi's obsessive love had developed her body so that it only accepts Raven. Her thoughts were interrupted by the realization that this isn't important now, and she wondered anxiously if this means she cannot learn magic. The Crown Prince told her that it's different. Her not being affected by others' magic has nothing to do with her using her own magic. This, of course, assuming she possesses magical power. Seraphi was surprised, pointing out that she was able to use the teleportation magic created by someone else. He explained to her that this is a type of magic that links places and moves the person between them, and that it most likely works because it doesn't involve the flow of magic into the person's body and affecting it. She held the book and wondered if she could then find the magic in this book. The Crown Prince mocked her, likening it to a child who doesn't even know how to hold a pen and tries to write a novel. She apologized to him, saying she only wanted to learn quickly. Rosalind was watching the situation from a distance with an angry look. The Crown Prince told her that if she wanted to learn magic to this extent, he would teach her himself, and ordered her to come to his office during break starting tomorrow. In his office later, the Crown Prince was examining the magic book and thought that it was very difficult for someone who knows nothing to read. He decided that if she faced difficulty, there would be no problem in adjusting the difficulty level to about this extent. Suddenly, he heard someone tapping on the door and permitted them to enter. Rosalind entered, asking him what they should do. The Crown Prince rose from his seat suddenly and asked what was happening. Rosalind was grumbling that Seraphi wouldn't play with her. The Crown Prince asked her to leave because he was busy, but she begged him to listen to her. Elsewhere, Seraphi was walking, thinking that she wondered if things were all right like this. It's wonderful that Raven became kinder, but she couldn't help but worry when she thought of the original story. Seraphi noticed that the Crown Prince's office door was open and heard Rosalind asking the Crown Prince if he was sure there was nothing. Rosalind told the Crown Prince that this was dangerous and that Seraphi had been acting strangely lately, and she continued that she believes he should know about this and that he will be shocked when he hears it. Then she revealed to him with artificial shock that Seraphi was trying to cook, considering the matter a scandal. She pointed out to the Crown Prince that he is the master of the place where Seraphi works as a chef, but the Crown Prince didn't seem surprised at all and asked her coldly if she was still here. Outside, Seraphi was in confusion, wondering what she should do and if she should return now. Rosalind struck the table angrily and asked the Crown Prince if he was truly satisfied with this situation. She reminded him that he had gone through interesting experiences because of Seraphi, all thanks to her, and she whispered to him cunningly, reminding him of the incident of planting drugs in his food. She expressed her disbelief at how he had let her off so easily, asserting she was worried about him. The Crown Prince answered her sharply that he isn't so weak that he needs her worry. Then he ordered her to leave, saying he wouldn't punish her for entering without permission, but she had to get out now. Rosalind commented that that woman's matter is truly tragic, and she explained that she was talking about Mariette, who did nothing but have tea with him, but Seraphi killed her because of that. Seraphi recalled her maid's talk who told her that that lady was so famous that there wasn't a single person in the country who didn't know her. And Seraphi wondered if there was another person as crazy as the original Seraphi. The maid told her that that lady planted a stimulant in the Crown Prince's food and tried to sneak into his bedroom that night, but was caught and driven out, and reminded her that she was very angry at that time and described her deed as a crime, and that they found difficulty in preventing her from going to kill her. So Seraphi wondered if she wasn't the one who snuck into the bedroom. The maid continued that that woman, after being rejected, committed suicide by drinking poison directly in front of the Crown Prince, considering that she was on a completely different level of madness. Seraphi thought that the original Seraphi might have stalking tendencies, but she wouldn't have gone as far as putting a stimulant in his food or committing suicide before him, and asked her maid about that woman's name. The maid answered her that her name was Mariette, so Seraphi was struck with a horrific shock, realizing that this is impossible. She wondered in horror if she had really killed her, not her exactly, but the original Seraphi. She realized that the matter was no longer just her being a crazy woman, but that she had inhabited the body of a killer and a psychopath, and preferred returning to being the ordinary crazy woman from the original story. She thought that she never expected to face such a big shock. Rosalind told the Crown Prince that Seraphi didn't just poison Mariette, but even tried to attack him after planting a stimulant in his food for him, and that she doesn't understand how she dares stay by his side, while Seraphi realized that she was the one who used the stimulant too. Rosalind continued that if it weren't for the Brinius family, Seraphi wouldn't be in this world anymore, and that the matter is truly tragic. The Crown Prince interrupted her with a cold question, reminding her that she is supposed to be Seraphi's friend. Confusion appeared on Rosalind, and the Crown Prince told her that his judgment seems wrong based on her position. Rosalind claimed that Seraphi is a precious friend to her, but there cannot be more victims like Mariette, and she expressed her concern that her dear friend might choose the wrong path again, and that this is all that worries her. The Crown Prince looked at Rosalind with coldness and disgust. He thought that talking to this woman gives him chills for some reason. The Crown Prince commented sarcastically that she is still interested in others' affairs, as is her habit, and she replied that the reason is that she is kind-hearted by nature. The Crown Prince smiled a sarcastic smile and said he had forgotten this matter, and that thanks to her he had remembered many things he had forgotten, and that she might be useful to him. Rosalind showed her happiness that she was of use, and the Crown Prince thanked her for that. He told her that he has many governance affairs he must attend to, and he cannot waste more time, and promised her he would make sure to reward her as she deserves later, and that a lady considerate of others' feelings like her would certainly understand. Rosalind apologized for taking from his precious time while he was busy and asked permission to leave. As she was leaving, she met Vice Commander Demian. She looked at him with admiration, thinking that he is very handsome, but it's a pity he is just a subordinate of the Crown Prince. After she left, Demian asked Seraphi if she was all right. She answered in confusion that she heard everything, so he asked her if she meant. So she replied that she was talking about the fact that she is a killer, a psychopath, and a predator, and asked Demian in confusion if he already knew about the matter. But before he answered in the affirmative, she interrupted him, saying that makes things easier then. She grabbed his arm and asked him to follow her to talk in a private place, which aroused his confusion. She explained to him that the truth is she had injured her head a while ago, so he asked if she was referring to the kitchen explosion incident. She told him that her memory had become blurred since then, and that she was in a bit of a difficult situation, so Demian understood the matter. He asked her how exactly he could help her, so she asked him to tell her everything he knows about the accident. Demian told her that before coming to Destian, he heard a certain rumor about a noble lady who tried to assault the Crown Prince by planting a stimulant in his food and sneaking into his bedroom. But after the Crown Prince rejected her, she committed suicide before him. He asserted that the name he heard at that time was the same one Rosalind mentioned earlier, which is Mariette. Seraphi asked him the meaning of "at that time," so he explained to her that since he began helping the Crown Prince here in Destian, he learned the hidden truth about the issue. Seraphi wondered in wonder about what that hidden truth was. Demian revealed to her that the person who visited the Crown Prince's bedroom that day was... At that moment, the young Crown Prince was waking in his bed to the sound of knocking on the door, and asked about the knocker's identity, but was surprised by someone's presence before him. He asked the servants who entered suddenly about the meaning of this, and about the reason for their coming in the middle of the night, and directed his question to one of the maids who was tasting the food for him. The maid knelt before him, feeling relief for his safety. The Crown Prince wondered in shock about a stimulant being in the food he ate. One of the maids told him she was worried that something might have happened to him, but seeing him perfectly safe relieves her mind, for she thought something irreversible had happened. The maid commented that because of the Crown Prince's refusal to taste the food to detect toxins, such situations happen. The Crown Prince wondered coldly what worries the servants to this extent, reminding them that he had defeated a dragon. So did they forget that? One of the maids told him they shouldn't underestimate this matter, and continued with concern that the slightest problem might cost them their heads. The maid realized she had overstepped her bounds, so she bowed to him, apologizing profusely. She asked him for pardon and forgiveness. The Crown Prince told her he wasn't angry and asked her to lift her head, wondering if he had punished any of them before. He reassured her that no one else knows of this incident and that he won't tell anyone, so there's no need to worry. The maid thanked him profusely, but he told her he was the one who should apologize and promised her he wouldn't refuse tasting the food to detect toxins from now on. The servants bowed to him in deep gratitude, and one of the maids asked him that if he feels unwell, he must inform them immediately, and he agreed to that. The crown prince thought that whatever he said, it would likely be to no avail. For them, the only meaning of their existence is for him to stay perfectly safe in his correct place. And suddenly the crown prince felt someone's presence. He opened the door to find Seraphi wearing an elegant black dress and realized it was she who was there the whole time. He said he suspected the matter, but he didn't expect she would go this far. Seraphi asked him if there was anyone suspicious. The crown prince wondered in confusion what she was talking about. She explained to him that she was asking if there was anyone suspicious, or anyone who tried to attack him. The crown prince asked her what on earth she was talking about, and ordered her out, considering what she was doing acting, and that he knew she wasn't in her right mind, but there are lines that shouldn't be crossed. The person who was in the room disappeared, and Seraphi wondered in shock who that was. The crown prince sighed while watching her as she looked out the window. Seraphi noticed a strand of red hair on the window, and realized the intruder was a woman with long hair. She confirmed to herself that someone was certainly here, and wondered if someone had broken into the room and if he had allowed someone to enter. He shouted in her face angrily, asking her to stop. She tried to convince him that it wasn't a lie, and that someone was really here. He ordered his guards to take her away, so she called his name in despair. She begged him to believe her and that someone was hiding in the bedroom. The door closed behind her, and the crown prince sighed, feeling that his patience had run out. He thought this was the limit of his patience. Elsewhere, the crown prince's arrival was announced, and he asked permission to enter. He was received by an older man, who welcomed him, saying he hadn't seen him for a long time, and asked him the reason for his early coming. The crown prince told his father, the emperor, that there was a matter he wished to speak with him about. The emperor told him he had heard from Duke Brinius, and that Seraphi had come to see him last night. The emperor asked him with a cunning smile what happened, and if they spent the night together, so the crown prince denounced the question, saying he pays no attention to Seraphi at all. The emperor reminded him that the duke suggested they get married, and that this would be a happy occasion. The crown prince insisted he was uninterested in her, and that he believed he had told him so many times before. The emperor criticized him for pushing her away always, and asked him why he wasn't kind to her as they were in their childhood. The emperor continued that the Brinius family is one of the most prestigious noble families in the country, and that he should be happy that a daughter from this family loves him. But the crown prince interrupted him to tell him that Seraphi had planted a stimulant in his food. Silence prevailed for moments. The emperor wondered mockingly if he was suggesting arresting the daughter of the Brinius family, and the crown prince called him angrily. The duke's arrival was announced, so the emperor commented coldly that they had finally arrived, and that they were slow in moving. The emperor told the crown prince that he could return now, and before the emperor left, the crown prince stopped him and shouted at him angrily, telling him he cares about dealing with nobles more than his interest in his son. The emperor replied that he knows how the economy of this country works. The emperor thought that everything is thanks to the nobles, and that only when the nobles bow their heads to the emperor is the nation's system maintained. For this reason, and to prevent them from thinking about unnecessary matters, he must sometimes give them a taste of sweet nectar, and that interacting with the nobles is the emperor's duty. The crown prince confronted him angrily, wondering if he knew what the nobles he loves so much are doing behind his back. The emperor answered him that he perhaps doesn't understand because of his youth, and that he lacks flexibility. The crown prince replied that if he acted on whims, heads would fall, and one mistake might cost the lives of tens of thousands of soldiers, and that if he were lenient, everyone around him would have died already. The emperor told him that being strict like this won't make him a good emperor. He ordered one of the guards to open the door. The crown prince wondered while the emperor was leaving if the reason for the death of everyone around the emperor was his flexibility, and thought sarcastically that on that throne he climbed by trampling those around him, he alone can smile a gentle smile, and what a blessing. The emperor looked at him angrily and asked him what he just said, but the emperor soon smiled, considering what he said very good, and that it seems he has acquired another necessary trait to be an emperor, and that this relieves him. The emperor left, while the crown prince was thinking about what he expected from his father. A few days later, the crown prince was in his office feeling tired, but he noticed he felt a strange clarity of mind. He recalled the memory of Seraphi presenting him with cookies, and how he asked her to stay away from him. He realized that peace is kept because Seraphi is not here. He thought she represents an annoyance to society, and that he wants to get rid of her, but wondered if there was any way for that, then permitted someone to enter. The maid told him of Miss Marriott's arrival. The crown prince realized he had forgotten, for today was the appointment, and agreed to meet her. The maids were watching the crown prince as he walked away, and they noticed his mood seemed unusually good, and they agreed among themselves on that. The crown prince felt someone's gaze staring at him, which aroused his confusion. The maids engaged in a whispered conversation where one wondered if this was the first time the crown prince had tea alone with a lady. while another expressed her curiosity about the nature of his relationship with Miss Mariette. For the third to guess they might have a special relationship, their speculations continued, so they expected Mariette might confess her feelings, and that the matter might end with them dating. The Crown Prince interrupted them suddenly, telling them he hears everything that goes on between them, so they apologized immediately in confusion, justifying their curiosity that they were happy for him. The Crown Prince explained to them sternly that it isn't a confession of love, and warned them against misunderstanding, so they submitted to his command in silence. And in the palace garden, the Crown Prince was sitting with Miss Mariette and began the talk saying he heard she has a matter she wishes to talk with him about. Mariette answered him hesitantly that she wishes so indeed, while the Crown Prince was sipping tea and thinking about the word confession the maids mentioned. And suddenly, Mariette confessed her love for him, which struck him with surprise and he almost choked on his drink. She corrected her words quickly, asserting that he doesn't have to reciprocate the feelings, and that just seeing him makes her happy. The Crown Prince appeared touched by her words, while she continued her talk that the happiness of the one you love is her happiness too, and finished her confession asserting she believes that with all her heart. The Crown Prince couldn't help himself and released a low laugh, so Mariette asked him if he was mocking her, but he assured her he certainly doesn't do that. Mariette took a sip of tea while she was in confusion. The Crown Prince told her that this was the first time he received such a sudden confession. Then he praised her with a smile, describing her as a pure and warm-hearted personality. Then he noticed Mariette's distraction, so he asked her if something was wrong, while he was thinking that perhaps he had overlaughed. He offered her a formal apology and explained to her that the reason for his laugh wasn't mocking her feelings at all. And in a moment, his features changed to a dark look, for Mariette to fall suddenly on the ground, and he asks help from the servants. The maids rushed to her, while the Crown Prince ordered them in a sharp tone to summon a doctor immediately. One of the maids called him with concern, and meanwhile, Seraphie was hiding among the bushes and watching the scene in shock. The Crown Prince turned with extreme anger toward her hiding place while shouting threateningly. Seraphie was struck with terror while muttering denying her involvement in the matter. Seraphie recalled in her mind the scene of Mariette adding a mysterious powder to the teapot. Seraphie realized the horrific truth and confirmed that Mariette was the one who planted the stimulant in the tea, and thinks with concern about what she should do and whether to spill the tea and leave. But soon a wicked smile was drawn on Seraphie's face, and she decided she needed a real and suitable revenge. Seraphie used stones to distract Mariette away from the table. Mariette moved in the direction of the sound, believing that the Crown Prince had finally arrived. Then Mariette heard another sound in the direction of the garden entrance, so she headed toward it. And at the entrance, she was stopped by one of the maids who offered her help, but Mariette seemed confused and hesitant to answer. Mariette asked the maid with concern about the time of the Crown Prince's arrival, so the latter answered her that she believes he will arrive soon. While Seraphie was switching the cup, Mariette thanked the maid and decided to return to the table until the Crown Prince comes. Mariette returned to the tea table in the garden and noticed that something seemed different from what it was before, which aroused her confusion. And meanwhile, Seraphie was watching her from afar while wondering with concern if Mariette had discovered what she did. Mariette tried to hide her tension by pretending to be calm and contemplating the beauty of the flowers, commenting that her nerves had calmed a little. But Seraphie had resolved to expose her before Raven and tell him she planted a stimulant in his drink to embarrass her. But what happened was shocking to everyone, for Mariette fell suddenly, and the Crown Prince shouted asking for help and ordered everyone to summon a doctor immediately, while Seraphie stood in a state of daze, not grasping what happened. The Crown Prince flew into a rage while directing his sharp gazes toward Seraphie, threatening her. Seraphie told the Crown Prince that she found last night a strand of hair in his bedroom, and that it was the same color as Mariette's hair. Seraphie was struck with panic, for she remembered she tried to tell him of someone's presence in his room, but he didn't believe her then. Seraphie continued explaining the situation to the Crown Prince, clarifying that she was worried about their meeting alone, so she came to check on them and saw Mariette planting something in his cup, and added she thought it was a stimulant again. So anger possessed her, and she switched the two cups to make Mariette feel shame. Then she revealed to him the shocking truth, which is that Mariette had put poison in his cup. And while the Crown Prince was in a state of shock, one of his assistants stepped toward him. The assistant informed the Crown Prince that the investigations revealed the presence of the same poisonous compound found in the teacup on Mariette's dress too, and therefore the incident was considered a suicide. But the Crown Prince refused this conclusion a categorical refusal, for he believed in the bottom of his heart that Mariette would never kill herself, and was perfectly certain she had been killed. And in the present, Demian explained to Seraphie that in actual fact, the investigations showed no categorical evidence proving she was the one who put the poison, and added that in light of these circumstances, accusing the daughter of the prestigious Brinius family was a very difficult decision, even for the Crown Prince. And for this reason, the final conclusion reached was that Mariette had ended her life herself. Seraphie commented that the Crown Prince, despite that, must have suspected her until the end. Doubt possessed her, and she wondered to herself if she really killed her. She asked Demian for his opinion, and he answered her that he doesn't know the truth, but he doesn't believe she is the doer. And when she asked him about the reason for his belief he answered simply, "It's just a feeling he has." Seraphi looked at him with amazement, for she didn't expect anyone to trust her, then thanked him for his words. Later, while Seraphi was sitting absent-minded, her maid Emily noticed that a matter was occupying her mind. Seraphi was holding the pink hair strand and told her maid she doesn't remember anything about it and that she is in confusion and doesn't know whom she should ask regarding it. Emily initiated her with a bright smile and suggested she ask her. Seraphi asked her maid if she knew anything regarding the pink lock of hair. The maid advised her to think carefully, pointing out that there might be someone else who possesses the same hair color. The image of a young lady with pink hair flashed in Seraphi's mind, and she wondered if it was Rosalind. Seraphi recalled a previous memory when Rosalind whispered to her that the Crown Prince was meeting his lover secretly in his bedroom that night, urging her to go and discover the matter for herself. Seraphi initially rejected the idea, considering it impossible. Rosalind wondered about her excessive confidence. So Seraphi explained to her that the Crown Prince leaves for his office early, works hard all day, then trains vigorously, and returns to his residence immediately after that, asserting that he has no time to meet women and that what she was saying was just a rumor. But Rosalind grabbed her hand firmly and reminded her that the Crown Prince leads the army, and wondered if someone like him would find it difficult to move secretly and avoid people's eyes, guessing that perhaps he had been holding secret meetings inside the palace all this time. Rosalind's words struck Seraphi with shock and anxiety. Rosalind tried to calm her down and suggested she go and see for herself, but Seraphi completely rejected the idea. Rosalind was surprised by her refusal and asked her for the reason, so Seraphi told her that the Crown Prince himself had told her that he does not care about women. Seraphi continued to defend the Crown Prince, asserting that he would not lie about such a matter, and that if he were interested in someone, he would have told her frankly. Furthermore, he would not hold secret meetings inside the palace, but would go out to enjoy his time outside given his personality. Anxiety was evident on Rosalind, while Seraphi confronted her, wondering if she had lied to her. Rosalind became confused, but Seraphi followed up that there was only one conclusion if that were the case. Seraphi realized that there was someone targeting the Crown Prince and trying to sneak into his bedroom, and she resolved that she must protect him. In the present, the maid told her mistress that she had tried to stop her that day, but she did not listen to her, and in the end, she snuck into the Crown Prince's bedroom and claimed she found the lock of hair there. The maid added that the next day, when Rosalind came to visit her, she was acting strangely. She mentioned that when her mistress went out for a few moments, Rosalind was searching everywhere in the room, guessing that she must have been looking for the lock of hair. Seraphi understood the matter, but she reassured her maid that there was no need for concern. Seraphi recalled what happened a short while ago when she entered her room to find Rosalind there, searching for something. Rosalind claimed confusedly that she was looking for a hairpin she had dropped, but Seraphi told her that it didn't seem to be here. So Rosalind added that she had just bought it. Seraphi asked her about its design and offered to bring it to her if she found it, but Rosalind refused and asked her to keep it for herself, then suddenly fell onto the bed. Seraphi asked her with concern if she was okay, and Rosalind answered that it wasn't serious. Seraphi advised her to rest at home, but Rosalind told her she came because she was worried about her, wondering if she had been scolded for sneaking into the Crown Prince's bedroom. Seraphi reassured her that it was fine, and that the Crown Prince was a bit angry, but there was no problem. Rosalind apologized to Seraphi, claiming the rumor was false, but Seraphi surprised her by saying that someone was actually there. Rosalind wondered in amazement what she meant, so Seraphi told her that she saw someone escaping through the window. She whispered to her that she found a lock of hair as evidence, and that she only needed to find out who it belonged to. Rosalind asked her about the hair color, and Seraphi answered that it was red. Seraphi pretended to be puzzled, wondering who would do something as daring as that. Rosalind looked at her with disgust and thought to herself how foolish she was. In another scene, Rosalind suggested to Seraphi that the lock of hair might belong to Mariette. She added that the hair color looked similar and that she was the first person who came to mind when thinking of red hair, so Seraphi nodded in agreement. Seraphi remembered how she used to think that Mariette was a good person. Rosalind took advantage of the situation and mentioned that Mariette had been interested in the Crown Prince for a while and that it was very possible. Then the maid asked her mistress in surprise about Mariette, and she answered in the affirmative, but the maid pointed out that the hair color was also the same as Rosalind's hair color. Seraphi replied angrily, wondering about the point of her words and asserting that Rosalind would not do something like that and that she was helping her out of kindness only. The maid backed down and answered her hesitantly. After several days, the maid was in the market, and after she bought what her mistress requested, only the perfume remained to be bought. The maid glimpsed two people from a distance and realized they were Rosalind and Mariette. The two ladies were whispering, and it appeared they were careful not to be seen by anyone. Then they left. The maid hurried on her way to tell her mistress what she saw. When she arrived, she was in a state of shock, thinking that Rosalind had already preceded her there. Seraphy was bidding farewell to Rosalind, who was about to leave. Seraphy warned Rosalind to be careful, which caught the attention of the maid who was watching the situation. The maid called her mistress and told her she had something important to tell her. Seraphy asked her what it was. The maid told her that she saw Rosaline and Mariette together in the market whispering, and they were watching their surroundings cautiously. Seraphy replied that this was normal. The maid was surprised by her reaction and wondered if she knew about it beforehand. Seraphy explained to her that Mariette was the one who planted the stimulant, and that Rosaline was the one who asked her if she had done so. She added that Mariette has a crush on Raven, and that she plans to confess to him and asked to meet him privately. The maid was shocked and wondered if this was true. Seraphy confirmed the matter, and for this reason, Mariette is undoubtedly the culprit. The maid wondered if her mistress truly believed this, pointing out that there might be another possibility. But Seraphy interrupted her firmly, asserting that they have no time for this, and that Mariette is trying to meet the Crown Prince alone to confess to him, and that she is waiting for another chance to plant the stimulant for him. She resolved that they must stop her before Raven becomes a victim of her schemes. Thus, the maid recalled how her mistress went to the meeting place, misunderstanding everything. The maid recalled in her mind how the Crown Prince confronted Seraphy angrily, accusing her of interfering and manipulating things from behind the scenes. Seraphy tried to defend herself, explaining that she told him that Mariette was the one who put the poison and that she only switched the 2 cups. But the Crown Prince refused to believe her, asserting that Mariette is not that kind of person. Seraphy confronted him with a rhetorical question, wondering if he thought she was the one who would do such a thing. The Crown Prince grew tired of the argument and shouted in her face, considering that the matter was repeating itself again. The maid remembered how her mistress returned after that and said something strange. Seraphy entered her room, so the maid asked her what happened and how things went. Seraphy told her that Raven believes she is the one who killed Mariette. Despair possessed her as she thought about being considered a killer. A fit of frustration and anger overcame her. The maid tried to console her, realizing that she must be in a lot of pain. Seraphy sat down, wondering in despair why no one believes her. The maid asked her to tell her what happened in detail. Seraphy explained that she discovered that Mariette put a stimulant in Raven's cup, so she switched the 2 cups. But she realized later that what she put was not a stimulant but poison, which shocked the maid. The maid concluded that this was logical. Mariette tried to poison the Crown Prince, and this explains that she had no feelings for him. But Seraphy surprised her by saying that Mariette is not the guilty one. The maid was surprised by her words and wondered about Mariette's motive for putting the poison then. Seraphy asserted that she saw Mariette put something in the cup with her own eyes. But she was puzzled. Seraphy repeated her assertion that Mariette is not the true culprit. In other words, Seraphy summarized the situation, explaining that Mariette wanted to meet the Crown Prince to confess to him, and that she, Seraphy, witnessed Mariette putting something in the cup and switched them, and that what was in the cup was poison that led to Mariette's death. Seraphy wondered how the Crown Prince and Seraphy, who were present, asserted that Mariette was not the culprit, and the maid answered in the affirmative. Confusion took hold of Seraphy as she wondered what actually happened that day. At another time, the maids were talking about the upcoming fireworks festival, and one of them asked the other if she had someone to go with on a date, but the other refused to answer. Meanwhile, Seraphy entered and greeted them, so one of the maids asked her if her preparations for the festival were going well. While Seraphy was walking away, she remembered the maid's words that she saw Rosaline and Mariette whispering together. Seraphy resolved that she first needed to find out what was said in the conversation between Rosaline and Mariette, and decided to ask Rosaline directly. But the maid returned to tell her that Rosaline had left early that morning. Seraphy decided then to go to the Imperial Palace, for she needed to ask Crown Prince Raven about what happened on that ill-fated day. Upon her arrival, she was certain that he had no engagements that day. She guessed that he must be somewhere inside the palace. She wandered through the spacious palace corridors looking for him, only to be surprised by seeing him standing with Rosaline. The Crown Prince was thanking Rosaline for telling him about something that had slipped his mind entirely. Rosaline apologized, explaining that she only wanted to help. As a token of thanks, the Crown Prince offered for her to be his partner on the festival day. Rosaline was struck with surprise and happiness. The Crown Prince confirmed his offer with a smile as he extended his hand to her. Rosaline accepted the invitation, feeling very proud. The Crown Prince told her he would leave the task of preparations to her. Seraphy was watching the scene from a distance, wondering in shock if the two had started dating. Rosaline noticed her presence and called her name in confusion. Rosaline wondered anxiously how long she had been standing there, for she did not want to be seen in this situation. She explained that she never imagined the Crown Prince would care for her to this extent, and that she only wanted to help. Seraphy interrupted her and called her name, telling her she had a question to ask. Seraphy approached her forcefully, which puzzled Rosaline, who felt that the atmosphere was different from usual, and that she might be slapped at any moment. Rosaline exploded in anger, considering that it was not her fault if the Crown Prince liked her, while Seraphy asked her sharply what she had been talking about with Mariette that day. Rosaline was surprised by her question. Seraphy asked her to tell her in detail what went on between them, but Rosaline did not expect this reaction. Rosalind shouted to herself that the crown prince had just invited her out on a date and wondered how she could be this cold, so Seraphy repeated her question in shock. Rosalind claimed she told her everything at the time, that Mariette had a crush on the crown prince and asked her to arrange a meeting for them, and that she had merely conveyed the message. Seraphy asked her if that was all, and if there were any other details, no matter how small. Rosalind denied that, then changed the subject, wondering if this was all that occupied her mind in this situation. Seraphy remembered the date and told her that it was great she was going on a date. She congratulated her with a smile and thought that this matter was suitable for her, as she would get rid of 2 annoying people at once. Seraphy told Rosalind she had one last question to ask, and that it was an important matter for her. Then she asked her directly if it was true that Mariette had a crush on Crown Prince Raven. Rosalind was struck with surprise and confusion by the sudden question, while Seraphy watched her with a sharp gaze, making Rosalind wonder how much she knew of the truth. Elsewhere, while Demian was training, Seraphy suddenly interrupted him. She sat beside him and asked if he could tell her more details about the tea meeting that brought the Crown Prince and Mariette together. Demian told her that he didn't know much, but Mariette herself said she had no feelings for the Crown Prince, and when Seraphy asked him if he had asked her why she said that, he answered in the negative. Seraphy explained to him that on that day, he and the Crown Prince said the same thing. Seraphy concluded that Mariette did not love the Crown Prince, but at the same time, she was not the one who put the poison. Confusion took hold of her as she wondered what actually happened that day, and why both the original Seraphy and the Crown Prince said that Mariette did not love him. She also wondered about the reason for Mariette putting the poison in the Crown Prince's cup. Most importantly, why they didn't believe she was the culprit. She felt very frustrated and wanted to ask the Crown Prince himself. At that moment, the Crown Prince suddenly appeared and asked her what she was doing. He approached them and asked curiously what they were whispering about. Seraphy was surprised by his calmness, for she expected him to distance himself from her after learning of her past from Rosalind. She hesitated to ask him, fearing she would stir old memories and provoke him, and thought it was better to walk away quietly. But Demian surprised her by asking the Crown Prince directly about what happened on the day he had tea with Mariette. The Crown Prince told him that Seraphy was there too, so she confirmed that. Demian intervened, explaining to the Crown Prince that Seraphy had not fully recovered her memory after the explosion incident, and asked him to tell them what happened. The Crown Prince began to narrate the events, explaining that Rosalind came to him one day and asked him to tell her that Mariette wanted to meet him privately. He added that he refused at first, but she tried to persuade him with an interesting story, for she told him that meeting another woman might contribute to distancing him from Seraphy. Rosalind continued that Seraphy has a mindset weaker than Tofu, and that she wouldn't be able to bear it if he met another woman, which surprised Seraphy. The Crown Prince commented that the idea was somewhat new and that it was a method he hadn't tried before. Seraphy realized that the reason Rosalind told her about the meeting place was to defeat her mentally, and wondered if Rosalind was only pretending to be her friend to bully her. But Seraphy wondered why the Crown Prince, who hadn't said anything about Rosalind before, was telling her all this suddenly. The Crown Prince asked her if she had learned a new truth, so she answered in confusion. Then he surprised her with a direct question, wondering if she had an idea about who killed Mariette. Seraphy realized that the situation was very bad, for signs of confusion and extreme anxiety appeared on her. Horror took hold of her because she never expected the Crown Prince to ask her such a question, although she expected that something would happen. Meanwhile, the Crown Prince was thinking how Rosalind was such a wicked and scary woman, and admitted that he might have been in such a state of extreme shock then that he completely forgot about the matter, then directed his speech directly to Seraphy to ask her if what he believed was true. Seraphy felt extreme anxiety, for she realized she might have stirred a painful memory in him, so she tried to evade the answer, claiming that her memories of that time were not entirely clear. But he met her words with a faint smile, then placed his hand before her and offered to help her recover those memories. He told her she must feel some pain, and at that moment, a loud scream erupted while she was recalling painful memories of the past in the palace. She remembered back to a scene of a meeting that brought the Crown Prince and Mariette together in the garden, where he asked her if she had something she wished to tell him, so she answered hesitantly in the affirmative. While he was sipping his drink, he wondered to himself about the nature of this confession, for Mariette to surprise him with her explicit confession of her love for him. She explained to him that she was hiding this secret out of shyness, but she no longer had a choice but to confess her feelings. And she continued her confession that she was in love with an extremely beautiful person, Lord Shahrazad. Confusion appeared on the Crown Prince from this sudden confession, and he asked her if she was talking about his relative, so she confirmed that to him enthusiastically. The Crown Prince wondered about the reason for her not going to meet him herself since she wanted that, pointing out that he is a friendly person and wouldn't be difficult to meet. She answered that she knows that, and that she was always watching him from afar, which aroused the Crown Prince's confusion, who wondered about her reason for doing that. She explained to him that her feelings for him weren't just simple admiration, and that she does not wish to be physically or emotionally close to him, for just staring at him makes her happy, and thinking of him gives her strength to continue in life, and that she is ready to offer anything for him, and expressed her extreme gratitude just because she was born in a world where there is someone like him, describing her love for him as unconditional love. The Crown Prince looked at her in shock, wondering to himself about what this strange woman was. The Crown Prince asked her if what she was saying seemed strange to him, so she answered in the affirmative. He tried to explain to her that what she feels is not a common feeling, but she asserted to him that it's okay even if he doesn't reciprocate her feelings, for just looking at him makes her happy. She added that the happiness of the one you love is her happiness too, and that this is what she believes from the depths of her heart. The Crown Prince couldn't help himself and released a low laugh, so she asked him if he was mocking her, and he asserted to her that he was completely serious about the matter. The Crown Prince told her that this was the first time he received such a sudden confession. Then he praised her with a smile, describing her as a pure and warm-hearted young lady. But he noticed her distraction suddenly, so he asked her if something was wrong, and at that moment, his features changed to a dark look. Mariette suddenly fell on the ground unconscious, so the Crown Prince shouted, asking for help, and ordered a doctor be summoned immediately. Seraphi concluded at that moment that the person Mariette loved was not the Crown Prince, but was Shahrazad. And the reason that made both the Crown Prince and the original Seraphi not mention this fact is another matter entirely. Seraphi thought to herself that the reason for them not revealing the truth is that Mariette herself told them that this is a secret she is ashamed to tell anyone. But this explanation stirred new questions in Seraphi's mind about Rosalind's role in the story, for she began to think about the nature of the conversation between Rosaline and Mariette, which eventually led to presenting Mariette to the Crown Prince. It was not logical for Seraphi for Mariette to use the Crown Prince as a means to meet Shahrazad. Rather, the opposite is what would have seemed more logical. Furthermore, Mariette did not wish to meet Shahrazad and talk to him directly because her love was not of this type, and Seraphi thought that she didn't know if this expression existed in this world. But Mariette considered Shahrazad as her idol or her favorite character, a girl obsessed with him, present everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Demian was in a state of confusion, wondering about what just happened, so the Crown Prince explained to him that he had shared his memories with Seraphi. At that point, Demian wondered about his own role in all this, while the Crown Prince looked at him silently. The Crown Prince asked Seraphi about her feeling after learning a new truth, so Demian felt he had been ignored. But Seraphi returned and focused on the most important issue, asserting that despite everything, she still doesn't know the identity of the person who put the poison. Seraphi was struck with panic and suddenly realized she was talking about all this in front of someone who has a psychological trauma linked to her, and blamed herself for what she was saying. The Crown Prince interrupted her thoughts with his question about whether she thought Mariette was lying, which surprised her. Seraphi wondered to herself about the secret of this calmness. For someone who believes she is the culprit, his behavior was strangely kind. She answered in the negative, explaining that Mariette did not seem like someone who could lie at all. The Crown Prince agreed with her, adding that among all the people involved in the incident, she seems the most innocent. Seraphi felt relief and concluded that Mariette is not the doer then, and thought she had survived imminent death, and thanked the Lord for that. But the Crown Prince warned her against jumping to hasty conclusions, reminding her that anyone can wear a mask. She looked at him in confusion, wondering to herself what he was trying to say. The Crown Prince asked her if she felt curious to know the identity of the true culprit, so she answered, of course, while she was praying in secret that it wouldn't be her. She asked him hesitantly if he knew who the doer was. The Crown Prince told her he has one person in his mind, but there are still some missing puzzle pieces that don't fit together. Seraphi stood thinking about the meaning of his words and those missing pieces. Later, Seraphi told her maid Emily that the person Mariette was a fan of was Lord Shahrazad, so Emily was struck with extreme surprise. But Seraphi told her there was more. Emily shouted that she knew that, and reminded her mistress that she had told her several times that Lady Rosalind seems dangerous and blamed her for not listening to her, and described Rosalind as a terrible person for deceiving a pure young lady and committing such a wicked act. So Seraphi tried to calm her down. Seraphi realized she might have said something unnecessary, while annoyance appeared on Emily. Seraphi asked Emily to help her change her clothes. Emily called her mistress, who was sitting on her bed, and asked her to put on her clothes. Suddenly, Emily's features changed to seriousness, and she told her mistress that today is that special day. Seraphi wondered in confusion what she meant by that day. Emily told her with extreme enthusiasm that this is the day a man will ask to go out with her on a date for the first time. Demian's arrival at the main gate was announced, for the guards to stand in reception of him with serious features. His sudden arrival aroused Seraphi's surprise, who knew in the bottom of her heart that his visit was not for a romantic date, despite the confusion that was drawn on her face. But her maid Emily was insisting with extreme enthusiasm on her own explanation, asserting that his coming alone to see a lady at this time, and with the festival approaching, only means an invitation to a date, and began trying to force Seraphi to change her clothes amid the latter's objections. And suddenly, Emily's face brightened and she announced with overwhelming happiness that Demian had already arrived, while Seraphi was trying to evade from between her hands. Demian entered the room with confident steps but with features shrouded in tension, while the guard opened the door for him to announce his presence officially. Emily whispered to her mistress while pointing to Demian, considering his obvious tension as the categorical evidence of the truth of her expectations regarding the date, while Seraphi asked her to calm down a little. Demian bowed with extreme politeness and began his talk admitting he came to ask a question he was obliged to ask, despite his realization that his sudden coming might seem rude. And while Emily was submerged in her rosy dreams, imagining that the talk was about the festival invitation, Seraphi asked Demian about the matter that occupied his mind. Demian surprised everyone with his unexpected request, when he asked Seraphi if she could show him His Highness's memories she saw earlier, dissipating all romantic illusions. Emily's heart broke and the date dreams fell, while Seraphi looked at her with a meaningful gaze, as if reminding her she was right in her doubts from the beginning. Demian explained in a sad and serious tone that the Crown Prince did not share those memories with him, and thus he was forced to come to her to know the truth. Memory returned to a previous scene that brought them together with the Crown Prince, where Raven was talking about the missing puzzle pieces, pointing out that the picture will most likely be completed on the festival day. His words about the festival aroused the surprise of Demian and Seraphi, who were sitting with him, but he confirmed the matter with confidence. Then the Crown Prince ended the meeting coldly, telling them that this is all he needs, and permitting them to depart and return to their homes. At that point, Demian initiated by offering to escort Seraphi to her carriage, but the Crown Prince interrupted him sharply, wondering with disapproval if he possessed all this free time to do that, then directed his harsh speech to Seraphi, rebuking her for not knowing the way despite her working in the place, in a way that aroused her surprise and confusion. Seraphi tried to defend herself and justify her position, but he shouted in her face, refusing to hear any excuses, and ordered her to go to her carriage alone immediately. Seraphi sat stunned by his reaction, while Demian bowed, asking permission in embarrassment, and the Crown Prince turned away coldly, ignoring them. The impact was clear on Demian as he realized that the Crown Prince had intentionally hidden those memories from him, and perhaps was trying to distance him from something. Seraphi remembered that situation while thinking of the reason for her rebuke, to reach a submissive conviction that this is his usual nature and there is nothing new in the matter. And returning to their current session, Demian explained to Seraphi that in the end, he couldn't extract any additional information from the Crown Prince after that situation, while Emily was pouring tea in silence. Demian showed his concern, pointing out that the prince's anger at that time and the difficulty of approaching him make him wonder about the nature of the memories Seraphi saw, and whether it is something he shouldn't know. Seraphi smiled bitterly while thinking of the prince's terrible personality, but she reassured Demian out loud that the matter is not as he thinks. She revealed the truth to him, saying that Lady Mariette had already confessed to the Crown Prince, but her confession was that she loves Lord Shahrazad, and not the prince, asserting that this is all there is to it. Demian submerged in thought as he absorbed that Mariette's feelings were directed towards someone else entirely, which changes the course of the investigation. Seraphi commented that this is what makes the matter stranger. If she loves Shahrazad, she had no motive to use the Crown Prince or seek Rosalind's help to arrange a meeting with him. The question marks around the case increased. The relationship seemed intertwined and illogical. Mariette loves Shahrazad, Rosaline is the mediator, and mysterious attempts to use a stimulant or poison, and all that left the three in total confusion. Suddenly, Seraphi felt a sharp headache striking her head, and held her forehead in pain before Emily's concerned eyes. A hand extended toward her carrying a medicine pill, so Seraphi thanked the owner of the hand with gratitude. It turned out that Emily was the one who prepared the medicine beforehand, and expressed happily her readiness for such situations, despite her sincere wish that her mistress always stays in good health, while Seraphi took the medicine. Seraphi felt gratitude toward her maid, so she extended her hand to pat Emily's head gently, expressing her great thanks for her help, and admitting that although the sequence of events appeared misplaced, Emily's intervention was a real help to her. And while Emily was looking at her with surprise from this sudden praise, she raised a shocking hypothesis, wondering if Rosalind had lied and used Lady Mariette as a tool to assassinate the Crown Prince. But soon, Seraphi rejected this possibility while analyzing the situation, pointing out that Rosalind is the one who told her of the meeting appointment so she could go there and stop it. And if her true intention were to assassinate the Crown Prince, there would have been no reason to give Seraphi that chance to intervene. Demian supported her analysis, asserting that if the goal were assassination, then involving a third party in the plan would only lead to reducing the chances of success. And suddenly, Seraphi's eyes widened in shock as if the puzzle pieces had finally come together in her mind to raise a terrifying question. What if Rosalind's goal wasn't the Crown Prince in the first place? Emily gasped in horror as she realized what her mistress was aiming at, while Demian completed the idea in a dark tone, concluding that the true goal was perhaps Lady Mariette herself. Seraphie nodded her head in agreement, explaining that this explanation seems very logical, for if Mariette had noticed Seraphie's presence hiding at that time, it would have been natural for the Crown Prince's suspicion to head toward Seraphie immediately upon the incident's occurrence. Seraphie recalled in her memory Mariette's face expressions on that day, and how she appeared stunned and confused, which reinforces the hypothesis that she was a victim of a cleverly plotted scheme. Seraphie linked the threads together, realizing that Rosalind has feelings for the Crown Prince, and this strong motive explains her desire to get rid of competitors, and concluded that if Rosalind wanted to get rid of Mariette without staining her hands with blood, she perhaps planned to use Seraphie as a tool to execute her crime. Seraphie clearly realized the brutality of the plan, as Rosalind succeeded in hitting two birds with one stone, getting rid of Mariette and making the Crown Prince hate Seraphie more than ever, which struck her with days from that woman's cunning. Emily jumped in panic, insisting on the necessity of informing the Crown Prince of this truth immediately, warning her mistress that if she didn't do so, she would live her whole life accused wrongly of a crime she didn't commit. But Seraphie appeared frustrated as she told her that all this is still just imagination and conclusions at the moment, and even if it were true, proving it requires a confession from Rosalind, which is something she will never do easily. Demian agreed with her opinion, pointing out that it is likely there is no physical evidence remaining at this stage, and above all, he cannot imagine that Lady Rosalind would proceed to confess voluntarily. Seraphie asked him curiously about the reason for his certainty of that, and how he can judge she won't confess. Demian answered with gloom while shifting his gaze away, saying it's just a feeling he has. Frustration appeared on Emily's face as she admitted that this possibility is the closest to reality, unfortunately. Seraphie agreed with her opinion while remembering Rosalind's personality, asserting that this is the impression that woman indeed leaves, which makes the hope in her confession very slim. Emily asked in a tone full of despair whether this truly means there is no way to prove her mistress's innocence. Seraphie sighed as she answered her that most likely there is no way, pointing out the impossibility of forcing someone to tell the truth against their will. But suddenly, Seraphie stopped talking as if lightning had flashed in her mind upon her uttering the phrase, telling the truth. Emily asked her eagerly if she had thought of something, while Demian turned toward Seraphie and asked her seriously if there was a way. Seraphie remembered the only person who possesses the ability to conquer will, and realized there is only one person who can force others to tell the truth even if it is against their desire, and the image of Crown Prince Raven appeared in her imagination. The scene shifted to night, where the quiet palace corridors appeared under the moonlight, while a mysterious figure was hiding under a cloak and walking cautiously. That figure removed the cover from her head to reveal Rosalind's face, whose features appeared a mixture of anticipation and caution as she stepped her steps toward her unknown destination.